viewing experience. So to do that, first off, we recommend that if you are using Chrome or Firefox, that you download the browser extension. It takes about 2 seconds, and it just optimizes the viewing experience rather than watching directly in browser, although you could do both. So we recommend that. If you hover over the screen, you will see the option to move from the current view into the grid view. We highly recommend you do that, as it will allow you to see multiple speakers simultaneously. Most of the sessions we have coming up include multiple speakers concurrently. So again, that will optimize the viewing experience for you. If you hover over the screen a little bit lower, you see a little 3-dot icon towards the bottom, which says more options. If you click on that, there's 2 things you can do. The first is to open the Q&A widget, which will pop up in the bottom right corner. That, again, we recommend. We do allocate time for Q&A in all of our fireside chats at the tail end. You guys have submitted some amazing questions. We want to make sure to get to as many of those as possible, so please open the Q&A widget. Additionally, you can go to the dial-in or audio options mode. If for some reason you can't get video today, you can get the dial-in information there as well. Couple more things. So first of all, if you're going to be chatting with us on social, on Twitter or LinkedIn or any other social platform, we use the hashtag BILivecast for all of our second screen conversations. So once again, we recommend you use the hashtag BILivecast and encourage all of that wonderful second screen discussion. If you have any friends, colleagues, coworkers that you think would benefit from today's content or find it interesting or valuable, you're free to invite them. They can just register using the same link and that you signed in. So just send them that URL. They should be able to access it. As I noted, we are also live on YouTube, which is broadcast there, and simultaneously on Twitter and LinkedIn as well through the YouTube link. If you can't tune in or can't tune into all of today's content, we will have today's sessions available on demand on our website. It's pretty easy to find. Just look at the content for Livecast tabs and find the on-demand archive. Lots of amazing stuff in there. So whether it's today's or past sessions, you can find some amazing marketer interviews over there. So with that, I'm going to let you know just 2 more things. If you haven't already seen from us, we have some pretty amazing stuff coming on the pipeline. But 2 events that I'm going to call out: September 23rd and 24th, we partnered with Demexco. We are going to be producing a 2-day summit for our international community. That is going to be incredibly high caliber and fantastic. So that's going to be in about a month from now. And then in October, on October 13th, we have our next Marketing Leadership and C-Suite event with speakers like the CMO of T-Mobile, Matt Staneff, Jennifer Breithaupt, the CMO of Citi, Zena Arnold, who's the CMO of Kimberly-Clark, and some other amazing speakers. So just 2 dates I wanted to call out for you there, and we hope to see you back here, of course, plenty of times between now and then. So with that, we've got, like I said, amazing speakers today from JP Morgan Chase, Voya Financial, Nissan Motors of America, Ferrero USA, Pyro, WPP, and more. So we're going to tee up our first conversation. I'd like to invite Lois, the head of corporate partner marketing for JP Morgan Chase, to join us on our virtual stage, and Leonard Armato, the CEO of Management Plus Enterprises, who's going to be moderating today's discussion. So let's give a warm virtual round of applause for Leonard and for Lois. And again, thank you to everybody who's tuned in today here on WebEx, and that's simultaneously joining us on LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube as well. So I see Lois, I see Leonard, you're on. I think we've got to get your AV on.
I put my AV on? Wait.
I hear you, Lois.
There we go.
There you are, welcome.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Of course, and I see Leonard's in, but we don't hear you or see you, Leonard. Maybe he's having a camera issue, so we'll let him figure that out. Oh, there we go. We can't hear you, Leonard. We're not getting your audio. It says it's plugged into a headset right now, so we'll have the team contact you to...
How about that?
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Technical difficulties are a daily occurrence these days, but we're glad we got them sorted. So thank you, Leonard. Thank you, Lois. I will turn the virtual stage over to you guys to introduce yourself and have a great conversation. So, Leonard, it's all you.
So let me introduce Lois. And first of all, I'm very honored to be able to interview her because she is a marketer that not only does things to help her company, but she does so many things to help the community. And, you know, a lot of people know JP Morgan Chase is this giant behemoth financial institution, but there's a lot going on that JP Morgan Chase does to educate people, to help people. And that's kind of where Lois sits, sort of at the intersection of celebrity and education and cause. So it's my pleasure to have Lois. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Leonard. I'm honored to be being interviewed by you after our conversation the other day. I was enamored with your career and how much you've accomplished. So mutual respect, which is always wonderful.
Well, thank you. Could you just sort of start out by explaining a little bit to people about what JP Morgan Chase does? Because we all know it as this big behemoth financial institution, but what in fact does the company do to serve the community and also to serve people in general?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, I am so proud to work for JP Morgan Chase. We have a global philanthropy group which gives about $200 million a year to nonprofit organizations around the world. But beyond that, we have a handful of I would say, incredibly important initiatives. A Women on the Move initiative, an Advancing Black Pathways initiative, which was founded and started a year and a half ago, and a very major military and vet initiative. And I think that with Jamie Dimon at the helm, our whole premise of how we operate is we go deep into a community first, business second. And I really say that with the utmost honesty, that I've seen it time and time again in the 9 years that I've been at JP Morgan Chase, that we really, really care about our communities, where we live, where we work, where we have businesses. We're in 44 states. We're in 122 countries around the world. And I'm really, really honored and proud to have the job that I have, which is to create partnerships with individuals that are mutually beneficial for both JP Morgan Chase and the individual.
That's a great answer. And I want to talk about your journey at JP Morgan Chase. You started out in philanthropy with the great Kristen Lemkow, former CMO of JP Morgan Chase, and now CEO of the private wealth division, which means she rubs elbows with a lot of rich people. And you started in philanthropy, but now you are head of corporate partner marketing. And as I said, you're at the intersection of celebrity, education, and cause. So talk about your journey a little bit.
If you don't mind me just regressing a little bit to just sort of give a framework of JP Morgan Chase at large. So JP Morgan is our global brand. It is the brand that has our private wealth management. It is all of our commercial banking clients. It's all of our investment banking. It's all of how money moves around the world, treasury and services. Chase is United States, domestic. It's the retail footprint, the credit cards, the mortgages, the auto payments, and anything that deals with the United States. So I sit in JP Morgan Chase and Co., and cross to all JP Morgan lines of business and all Chase lines of business, which is about, I'd say, 20 different lines of business. And I started in global philanthropy, which is also part of JP Morgan Chase & Co. At that time, Kristen was the chief communications officer for Chase. And I was in charge of strategic community partnerships. Our philanthropy structure at that time was what I call a place-based strategy, where we would go like deep into New Orleans, and Katrina happened, and we knew that we had to help New Orleans overcome Katrina and some of the really, down and trodden areas and help rebuild them with housing, versus a Chicago, which has its own systemic problems with education, versus a San Francisco, where the homeless problem just is so significant and there's so many youth that are homeless. So Kristen and I kind of created this magic sauce where we would go in and we'd give philanthropic dollars, we'd engage our employees in volunteer activities, and we would maybe be lucky enough to find a celebrity that would was passionate about what we were doing. And then all of a sudden publicity started, and we were really able, this is back in the early 2010s, 2011s, to be known as a brand that cared about communities. So that was what I did when I was in philanthropy. Then when Kristen got the incredible promotion of being the CMO of all of JP Morgan Chase, she asked me if I'd want to come and join her on the marketing team, which I did. And between her and myself and a colleague who unfortunately passed away, Jimmy Lee, we created this corporate partner marketing group.
Wow, that's a great story. And I'm glad you took the time to share that with us. It's so interesting. You know, I was talking to you yesterday and I was fascinated about how you take important events in culture like the US Open Tennis Tournament or the Super Bowl, and then you wrap programs around those that benefit the community, but also help you from a marketing perspective. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, we did talk about the Super Bowl, which was, one of the Super Bowls that I worked at, which was the 2013 Super Bowl, which was in New Orleans. And the other thing I really have to say I respect about JP Morgan Chase is that our leadership does believe in trying things, testing and learning, falling on your face, learning from mistakes, and maybe sometimes not going forward with things that don't work out with the best results or KPIs that we would want them to. And I think, Leonard, you and I spoke about the 2013 Super Bowl in which it was New Orleans. They had asked me, could I create some kind of opportunity for client engagement in New Orleans around the Super Bowl that would be unique, because 2014 was going to be in New York. And we knew that New York would be a very saturated, popular place with lots of activations. How could we differentiate our brand? So in 2013, I had the fortune of meeting Steve Gleason. For those of you who don't know him, a former football player for the New Orleans Saints who was diagnosed with ALS at the age of 33. He's now in his young 40s. He is living with ALS. He cannot move anything except for his eyes. He is the poster child and actually just got a Congressional Medal of Honor at the Capitol pre-COVID in January for his contributions to technology for disabled people. So anyway, I'd met Steve. Steve is an icon in New Orleans, icon in the world now. And we activated a lot of really interesting events around Steve in the 2013 Super Bowl. But we didn't feel like it yielded us the results that we would have wanted. So we didn't move forward with that same kind of strategy in 2014. But what we do try to do is really figure out with partners, people of influence. They are not endorsed by our brand. What is their passion point? What matters to them? And how can there be a mutually beneficial opportunity for us to engage with them, to help them, and then in turn help us?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything you said leads me to believe and others to believe that JP Morgan is really a purpose-driven company, and it seems like that. And, you know, I have so much respect for you and what you do, because you do so many things that help people and look at situations where you can step in and make people's lives better or make the community better in a certain way, shape, or form. So congratulations for that. And, you know, this is a time of, you know, social unrest, as you know. I mean, my goodness, every day we're reading something different in the news. You know, we see what's happened, you know, in the last few days. And I know that JP Morgan Chase has made a big commitment to the Black community. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what your position is on that and what you're doing to make the world a better place in that regard.
Yeah, so Sekou Colland is the head of the Advancing Black Pathways Initiative. Sekou is a great colleague, great friend. I think back, I'm just going to try to get this right. In 2018, he came from the investment bank. Him and Jamie Dimon had a really interesting conversation about the disparity between Black Americans and white Americans in terms of income, which I think we've been seeing a lot of on social media, in terms of home ownership, in terms of banking. And we saw this as an opportunity that not only could we maybe be helpful with financial education and resources to the Black community, but also an opportunity to really hit this head on. So, you know, I know that Black Lives Matter has been around for a long time, and even Colin Kaepernick, you know, what was that, 4 years ago that he started his kneeling movement. So yeah, I'm not saying that we were like ahead of the curve, but in 2018, Jamie and the other operating committee leadership decided that if we were going to do something, we weren't going to skirt around the issue. We were going to call it Advancing Black Pathways. And I think that was really, really bold. And we announced it in February of 2019. With that, we are giving an enormous amount of grants to Black organizations. Our pillars for that is not only helping people with their financial education, helping Black businesses grow, and also helping the housing and community supports that the Black population sometimes, faces with a disparity. We started this in Detroit. We called it the Entrepreneurship of Color Fund. This was back in 2015, 2016, when JP Morgan Chase announced $100 million to try to revitalize the city of Detroit. We lent 44 Black men and women loans to start their businesses. These were loans that these people never would have gotten if they went through a traditional credit process because they didn't qualify for XYZ reasons. 43 of them are still operating and have paid back every single penny of that they were given, which to me is just like, it gives me the chills to even think about it. So we do have a huge philanthropic contribution to Black communities right now. We also have just created, and I don't know, Leonard, if you and I spoke about this the other day, but community branches. Our first one was in Harlem. Our next one is going into Minneapolis, I think later this month, and it's about 2 blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered. And then we're doing Chicago, Detroit, and Akron, Ohio, where LeBron has his I Promise school right down the street. So we have, and then there's a whole array of additional community branches that we'll be announcing. And what these community branches are doing is directly related to the Black and brown population in the United States. And it's everything that I said: education, home, housing supports, and business loans.
Well, that's so heartening to hear what you're doing, because there's a lot of now attention on the issue and the problem, but I like to get from the point of talking to the point of doing, and you're actually doing things. And there's sort of, in my mind, there's like 3 things that have to happen. One, you have to identify where systemic racism is occurring and root it out. Number 2, you have to actually engage in programs which are going to bring people up, because a lot of this is based on economic disparity. And then, of course, there's the education aspect, where you got to teach people at a young age, about equality and inclusion and all the things that are important, the kinds of core values you want people to grow up with. So, my hat's off to you and JP Morgan Chase for actually doing something as opposed to just talking about it.
Yeah, you spurred me to think of, we have a program called the Fellowship Initiative, which started in New York City 10 years ago. And what we did was we took young men of color at the end of 8th grade that were getting grades that were in the CD range, but their test scores showed that they had much higher aptitude. And we put them into a program called the Fellowship Initiative and had a cohort of about 30 of them, mentored by JP Morgan Chase employees, Saturday school by JP Morgan Chase employees. And the first class, which graduated, I want to say in 2012, 2013, every single one of them got a ride, a scholarship, free ride to schools all over the country. One went to Harvard, one went to Brown, and we've just continued to grow that program. And we now have cohorts of the Fellowship Initiative in LA, Chicago, and New York, and are looking to expand that program as well. So, I think that just is a testimony to mentorship, which we really strongly believe in, employee volunteerism, and, as you said, starting youth on proper pathways.
That's wonderful. And it reminds me of a story you told me yesterday, which I'd love for you to, tell everybody out there. And that's how you use celebrity, like somebody like Victor Cruz, in a way that has helped a really cool business, Kith, grow. So tell that story, because I think people would love to hear that.
Well, Victor Cruz, I love him. He's just such a good guy. I met Victor Cruz. I don't know if everybody knows who he is. Super Bowl champion, played for the New York Giants, had a breakout season, had a lifetime of overcoming adversity, was not drafted, and had to walk on to the Giants, made it. Father and grandfather died within 2 weeks of each other while he was in college, just like one thing after another. But anyway, the how I met Vic was in his breakout season at the Giants, pre-breaking out. Judy Diamond, our CEO's wife, was the co-chair of an event for Ballet Hispanico, which taught Latino children first step dance lessons. And she said, I'm sick and tired of having this like huge gala, and I get the Adelante, our business resource group membership, to come, but I never get any of the white executives to show up. How am I going to do that? And I said, what about that guy who just salsa danced on the Giants, like when he scored a touchdown? So this is a true story. Like, stories are amazing. So Judy says to me, I actually know Lori Tisch, who Tisch family is part ownership of the Giants. Let's call Lori and see if we could get to Victor. This is back in 2011. So Lori gets us Victor Cruz's cell phone number. I call Victor Cruz. I'm like, hi, this is Lois from JP Morgan Chase. Would you want to come to this Ballet Hispanico event? Anyway, the Ballet Hispanico event was in March, and the Super Bowl was in February, and the Giants won that year. So you could imagine what executives came to the Ballet Hispanico.
All of them.
Anyway, Vic is a very philanthropic guy from Paterson, New Jersey, cares a lot about kids, cares a lot about youth with science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM programs, and we helped support his foundation, got him started with a number of things, and in turn, some of my colleagues and I would go to Giant games, and at one of the Giant games, I met Ronnie Feig, who is the CEO of Kith, and Ronnie was talking with me about his need for business banking, how he was a growing brand. And Kith back in that day was not the Kith that we know today, that has treats and stores globally all over the world. And we were able to help set Ronnie up with, some really strategic bankers who helped him grow his brand, go international. We sponsored a fashion show of his as his financial partner. And it's just like, to me, when worlds collide, it's just wonderful when there's authentic connections. So I always thank Vic for introducing us to Ronnie. Ronnie thanks me for introducing him to Vic. It's like this triage of people.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And, I talked a little bit earlier about how you're sort of at the intersection of celebrity and educating the public. And I know you're proud of your relationship with LeBron James and Maverick Carter. So I bet people would love to hear about how you work to create the concept of kneading dough with the Uninterrupted platform and the kinds of things you've done there.
Well, first, I think that what underlies the story that I'm going to tell is the bench strength of JP Morgan Chase. And, back to our commitment to community and commitment to not-for-profit organizations. So, anything that I do with people as partners, whether they're an athlete, a celebrity, a thought leader, or a business leader, there's typically no dollars involved, which I think most people just go, what? How does that work? And if there are dollars involved, they usually go to the philanthropic organization, never to the individual. So we do have endorsed celebrity spokespeople, as I'm sure many people have seen: Serena, Steph Curry, Kevin, and Lindsey Vonn, and they do get dollars from JP Morgan Chase to talk about our brand, but that's not what I do. I work with people and try to figure out authentic connections. So LeBron James Family Foundation, LeBron started for the first time he was in Cleveland, before he went to Miami, and our employees who work in Cleveland and Columbus and the Akron community would help support LeBron with what we call his one and dones, his cleanup of community homes, his one-time events. And LeBron's whole premise of LeBron James Family Foundation is that he took a kid in Akron that was identified by the public school system as not reading at grade level at the end of second grade. And the reason why is that if a kid goes into third grade, not reading at grade level, there's like an 82% chance that they're going to drop out of high school in these kinds of communities, because they don't get the supports to ever catch up. So we would work with mentorship with the LeBron James Family Foundation. Long story short, he went to Miami. He was hated by everybody. Our brand stuck with him, because nobody liked the way he did his big announcement. And then he came back to Cleveland, and Cleveland was ready to embrace him again. And the Cedar Point Amusement Park in Sandusky, Ohio offered LeBron a one-day in August every year to take his people who are part of his foundation, the constituents, not his Foundation workers to Sandusky to have a day at an amusement park, and I sponsored that. Through that sponsorship, got to know LeBron, and not for big money, for very little money. Got to know LeBron, got to know Maverick Carter, and introduced the LeBron James Family Foundation to our Force for Good team at JP Morgan Chase. We have 50,000 techies around the globe. And one of the ways that we have to fight for tech talent the same way that every big tech company does. And one of the ways that we try to helpfully retain them is by offering them philanthropic opportunities. So we put a team of about 60 techies from the Columbus, Ohio area on a project right when LeBron announced that he was going to pay for any kid who went through his program and pay full rides to a scholarship at the University of Akron. He had no way to track them. So we started working with him and his foundation, and we actually coded the solution to give him the solution to have a database to track these kids. Through that relationship, you can only imagine how much more I learned about the LeBron James Family Foundation. And one of the things that came out loud and clear was the need for financial education. And in a brainstorm with Maverick Carter, I said, let's try an experiment. What if we were to get athletes talking about their journey with money? And maybe then kids would listen, maybe adults would listen. And there was a lot of like pushback and conversation at the firm being JP Morgan Chase, about would this resonate with the mass consumer? Would a everyday person who makes $50,000 a year and has 2 kids, would they care about what LeBron James or Serena Williams, who make multi-millions of dollars, say? And in fact, we did a pilot show with Kneading Dough. My kids think I'm so cool. The Jay-Z lyrics, high school graduate, straight to the league. Yesterday I was kneading dough. Now I'm kneading my dough. That they did the program Kneading Dough. And we had 5 incredible athletes speak their financial mistakes, how they learned about money, what they were taught about savings. And it went crazy. It went viral. We had over 1 billion earned media impressions in year 1, and we've continued the program. And it really is a huge basis and premise for the financial health education that we are systemically trying to get out to all Americans right now.
Wow. I mean, and you're still, I mean, I noticed watching the program that JP Morgan Chase is a sponsor.
The only sponsor. It's,
yeah, you're the only sponsor. So
we I mean, to get to marketing terms, they own the intellectual capital of it, but it's a partnership. It's us and them. We meet with them probably 4 times a week, and I would say it's half my job is kneading dough, figuring out kneading dough, how we get it out to people, the social media strategy, the athletes that we interview, who we work with, how we engage them in future opportunities at the firm. I mean, that's really what I do. It's like I meet somebody, I understand their passion points. Lindsey Vonn, entrepreneurship, small business, Serena, women and babies now. It's like there's so many things that we do with these people that, as I said, it's not endorsement about a product or a service. But I'm so excited because we have Layla Ali as our first interview of this year. And she is going to be speaking about what she learned from her father, Muhammad Ali, about money, her first jobs. And then that's on October 22nd on chase.com, YouTube. Also, I'll give a little plug there. And then also what she's teaching her 5 children. So we're really excited for our work with Kneading Dough.
Oh, very cool. And, so I want to talk just for a moment about the pandemic and the way it sort of accelerated change and made us morph. I mean, we're having this conversation virtually now, whereas in the past, brand innovators would have had it in a room and we'd be sitting together in person. And I know that you at JP Morgan Chase has had to make some adjustments as well. You don't have the same kind of physical events as you had. So what kinds of things have you done? What kinds of challenges have you faced? And what kind of adjustments have you made, Lois?
Well, I mean, I think I could speak for the entire firm. We've made, some really huge adjustments. We are an event-driven company, meaning that every single line of business, I think, strongly believed in bringing people together using our breadth and depth and our relationships in business at conferences to introduce our clients to people and have the opportunity to learn from, a massive number of people in all different ways. in particular, the kneading dough work. When we started planning season 4, which is 2020, we kind of took a different turn from the past 3 seasons of just recording interviews with these top athletes, and we were going to utilize our sports and entertainment properties like the Chase Center in San Francisco and Madison Square Garden in New York and Radio City Music Hall to host really big, explosive, dynamic events in which we could talk about our community work in those areas, as well as have like a top superstar athlete. And Scout's honor, our first choice was to do something at the LA Forum with Kobe Bryant.
Oh, wow.
Pre his passing. That was the kind of event that we were thinking of doing, where we would be able to gather influencers and mass consumers and obviously not charge them, but thus just be able to talk about financial health. So when COVID hit, which hit pretty suddenly in New York, I just remember it was like 1 week time frame where it was like, oh, lots of people were wearing masks on the subway, and then boom, March 15th, we were closed. We first went through a lot of iterations, and I'm sure many of our colleagues on this call listening, where we started like contingency planning. Oh, we'll be back by May, so we'll do this, Oh, maybe it'll be June. And then finally we said, no more contingency plans. We are just moving to a virtual format. So I am working with the retail team, which has a program called Chase Chats, which had also started out as an in-person event in branches to make our branches be known more as advice centers. And Kneading Dough is going to be featured on the Chase Chat once a month, starting in October, and going to our 96 million mass consumers across America for them to watch, and anybody else can watch it too. It's free.
Wow. I mean, you may have already answered this, but in my mind, you are a miracle worker because, you, Lois, get all these famous people to do things for nothing. That's incredible. And I used to manage famous people, so I know how hard it is to get them to do things for nothing. You have to appeal to their heart, as you do. And that's a tremendous, tremendous skill set. So congratulations for that. And what I think people would love to know is, what do you view as your most successful program? What are you most proud of?
My most successful program, I would say, I hate to keep going back to LeBron, but I need to use somebody else besides LeBron. I mean, I have to say what LeBron James is doing in Akron, Ohio with the I Promise School is truly extraordinary. I mean, there will be a documentary coming out on it. And why I say that, it's not just a school. It is a pantry for people to have housing. He just did a partnership with the Graduate Hotels so that there's 2 aspects of it. One is affordable housing for families in Akron. The other is trauma-based free housing for families in trauma. He has what I call a collective impact model of supports for these families in Akron. And just say, when I say like working with LeBron, getting a community branch, which will open in first quarter of 2021 in his own community, that was a huge feat because Akron is not a big city and we usually do things big in big cities. So that I'm very proud of. But I have to say that, some of the other work that I've done is more with people like Petra Nemkova. This is like sort of a unknown secret about our firm. So anytime that there's a natural disaster, and we're seeing it right now in Louisiana, again with Hurricane Laura, we give hundreds of thousands of dollars for disaster recovery. Petra Nemkova was a supermodel, if you guys remember, who was in the tsunami 11 years ago. She hung on a palm tree for 11 hours. Her fiance was washed away. And Petra is now working with All Hands, All Hearts, which is her foundation, in which people from all over the world can do volunteer projects and have sustained disaster recovery. So the Force for Good program, the Techie program that I was telling you about earlier, we worked with Petra and really systematized how volunteers could go out, how projects could be assessed, and that's on a global level. So I'm proud of things like that. I'm proud of working with Deepak Chopra and thinking about mindfulness and how we could, work with him to get wellness to be broader than just, your 10,000 steps a day, and how your mind and soul really matter. I'm proud of the work we've done with Steve Gleason and how he's been able to help inform our chief technology officer about how to develop better products for the disabled population. I mean, I think that the key here is that every single person that I work with, I really, really try to find what their passion points are and what their deep interests are. And then my job, the other half of my job, is internal at the firm, working with every CMO, understanding every campaign, understanding all of our initiatives. And we're 250,000 people. We're as big as a small country at JP Morgan Chase. And I always say, if I can't, in my mind, connect the dots and try to find a way to help any of these, influencers out there that are doing their magical miracle work in the world with their platform, then, I'm not successful at my job. That's the way I measure myself, in addition to all KPIs of impressions and views and likes and call to actions. But yeah, that's just how I think about it. So I appreciate your compliments, but it's really these people who have marvelous platforms that are doing God's work.
Well, obviously the things that you do, nobody can argue with. They're designed to help people in need. And we talked about JP Morgan being, and JP Morgan Chase being a purpose-driven organization. And we've seen companies now take a different approach to marketing. We have all of these challenges out there in the world, and brands are now being called upon to take a stand on social issues. So you're a brand that appeals to most people, to everybody. You're a mass reach brand. So how do you navigate the waters of being a purpose-driven brand, but at the same time not alienating certain aspects of your customer base?
Well, we never go political. I guess that's lesson number one. I think that we have a new head of diversity.
You don't do what LeBron does and says, who cares about Donald Trump? I don't want him to watch my games anymore.
We don't do that. No, I mean, we have a government relations group and corporate responsibility group led by Peter Shearer. He's amazing. I think, we get informed on every policy that's coming down, not just finance policy. Our government relations news that comes out to employees is really phenomenal. It's like an education course in itself. I think the leadership of Jamie, we are giving people half day off for election day to vote. Jamie is always the first one to say he loves his country, his family, his country, and then his job. I think that we really try to keep those practices that our leadership gives to us, in mind. And I think some of our stands with women right now, with equal pay, with flexibility, and with Black and brown people are really making a difference. And I'm sure we're not liked by some, but our social media team is very, very careful with what we will put out there, how we listen to consumers across the globe. So I think it's just a combination of using data and really figuring out what the pulse is, and really, having the ethics and morality within each of us as employees to stay away from issues that we know are controversial.
Totally, I get that. I think that's a well stated and well reasoned answer. So let's talk for a second about your leadership skills and how they have, let's say, changed or morphed a little bit during the pandemic. I notice you're in your bedroom. It's very nice and neat behind you.
I tried to get away from the bed. I made it though.
It tells me a lot about you. You don't keep things all over the place. Very neat and clean. So now that you're dealing with people in a little bit different way, how has that changed the relationship with your colleagues, employees, et cetera? And how have you adjusted, and what have you found to be most effective?
Well, obviously, it's changed a lot. I mean, being a global organization, we always had lots of colleagues in different locations, and people on my team live in different cities, so it's not like I would see them every day at work. But I do think that the way our offices were structured with little conference rooms and the way we would be able to gather did increase maybe sometimes creativity or innovation, or just like some off-the-cuff brainstorming. So it's been a challenge, and I have a young team, and I have children that are, to me, young, 30 and 29. And I think that what I tried to do, and they could attest to it more than myself, but the team has given me great feedback about it, is I have just done a stand-up every single morning at 9:45 a.m. Eastern. And it is like, you just dial in, it's 15 minutes. There are times when we talk about work, but it's mostly about life. How was your weekend? What did you do? What's up? And you just like, it's the water cooler talk. So I've tried to keep the water cooler talk going on to just feel that connection. I need it. And, I can only imagine how, some of the younger workforce needs it and wants it even more. So I've tried to keep that going. We've tried to do, and lots of teams have tried to do, happy hours and other kinds of Zoom events. You and I were talking about, I think Zoom has been a big help, because even with my colleagues in Ohio or California or London, I wouldn't always see them. I would talk with them on a conference call. And now I think we've gone to all Zoom in terms of all of our meetings. It's really rare when I just speak with somebody as opposed to see them face to face. And I think that there's a nice connection there. I think seeing the baby sitting on a mom's lap every now and then or a dad's lap, is always fun. And, once in a blue moon, I'll get my 29-year-old to come in and wave, because I'm so proud of her, but, not really.
Well,
I try to keep it real. I try to keep it.
Well, you refused to have a Zoom call with me yesterday, so I'm not going to take that as an offense.
You know where I was. I was on a boat. So
I'm only joking. You talked about having so much tech at your disposal. During this period of pandemic, has technology been utilized by you or JP Morgan Chase to, let's say, enhance your capability to deal with this crisis?
Yes. I mean, we are a company that used to take a very long time to approve any new kind of tech platform. Zoom, it was out within a week when the pandemic started, back in March. There's a lot of tools that they've been releasing to us, a lot of quicker approvals. I think it's remarkable how we haven't missed a beat. I mean, we really haven't missed a beat. I am so proud of the teams and the commercials we were able to develop, the creative animation that we changed to instead of using real people because we couldn't go and film, our social media strategy. I mean, I think that April, May, June was probably the hardest. I know it's the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Like, it was 24/7. And I think the whole marketing team, was kind of spinning and just figuring out, how do we pivot to deliver to our customers what we need to deliver, let alone keep our community commitments. So I think technology has been very, very helpful for us.
Wow. I mean, so you touched on something that I think everyone's really interested in. And this is a question that's now starting to come in from the people listening. When you talk about production and media planning and media buying, how has all of this affected those three things: production, planning, and buying?
Well, production, obviously, greatly, as I was saying. We do have an in-house creative team, but we also do use external agencies. We did just do a shoot with Kevin Hart where we didn't go, but a producer went. That was the first, I think, live shoot that we did again. So look for Kevin's commercial. A lot of Zoom productions, we've learned very quickly. I love the live like this, but a lot of pre-produced productions, like Serena Williams and I never even thought of that. Jay Williams and Serena Williams, they're not related, but Jay Williams is our host for Chase Chats, and Serena did our Chase Chat in August. And that was like a pre-produced segment. So we've learned a lot about pre-producing segments. As far as media buying, Tracy Ann Lim, we're so lucky to have her. She's our head of media buying at the firm. Tracy Ann has been doing a whole different pivot strategy. We did a Show Me Your Walk graduation. I don't know if you caught that in May, but we did a graduation ceremony with historically Black universities and colleges, and had millions and millions of viewers with a social media campaign show us their walk and recognize graduates around the country. We did do a lot of social media buying on that. So I think increase in social, decrease in TV at the beginning. We did not want to seem deaf to what mass consumers are going through. And I think that's the message that we continue. We're not spending big bucks on things because money could be used a lot differently elsewhere. So.
Yes, yes. Oh, no doubt. So, do you have any predictions about what the industry is going to look like coming out of this and going into 2021? When I say coming out of this, I mean, I don't know exactly when we're coming out of this, but what does 2021 look like to you?
I certainly hope that 2021 looks like a year where we could start having smaller gatherings with all the proper protocols in place, but to be doing some of our in-person meetings and events again.
Yep.
We have a lot of sponsored properties. I named a few of them. I certainly hope that consumers get to take advantage of them. I hope that the 5,500 branches that we have across the country that are open continue to get visitors, and bankers continue to be able to offer the advice that they have. So I'm hoping that people get more comfortable with the new normal. Like I don't want to predict anything because my husband's an executive in healthcare and he scares the crap out of me, to be honest, about like how long this road could potentially be. But I do think that if we're careful and if we go by guidelines, there's probably ways that we could be doing that. I think social is going to be huge. I think influencer platforms on social media are going to continue to be the game changer to make us aware. And I certainly hope that our political leadership, no matter what happens in November, can really bring the country together. So.
Yeah. I mean, you have your name on a big building in San Francisco.
Sure do.
And you're waiting for people to populate that building.
We spent a lot of money for that building.
I know. And so you want people to get in there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that's going to affect that dramatically is the work that's being done, and your husband's probably aware of this, on rapid testing.
Yeah.
So one of the things they're hoping, and that's why the NBA is talking about maybe pushing the season back for next year, is that people can come to an arena, let's say, take a rapid test, and quickly know whether they test negative or positive. And if they're negative, they can enter the building, and hopefully there's protocol in place there to keep them as safe as possible. If they test positive, of course, they have to quarantine. But it's always taken a long time to get those tests back, so you can't really do that. But if you have rapid testing, you might be able to get people to come together a little bit more quickly than you did in the past. So I'm sure you're probably thinking about that too for your small events that you might be having.
Yeah, I mean, I read about the saliva test, if that's what you mean. I mean, that would be remarkable. I know my parents, like just as an aside, I haven't seen my parents since December. My dad's 90 and my mom's 85, and my daughter just had a baby. And I finally convinced them, the fourth time, that they're going to fly up here on the 13th. And I had to write them out a plan of how they're getting on an airplane, how they're going to have to test before they go. Then they're going to have to quarantine for 4 days. Then I'm going to get them to this rapid test center, just to make sure that they're safe and we're safe. And it's just, I feel like those are the protocols that we need a lot of help with our community organizations, to make sure that every person, not just those who have financial means, can afford these kinds of tests and start figuring out how to get their kids back to school and feel safe. So that's my hope for 21.
Totally. I mean, and one of the things I think we've seen in this whole pandemic is just how fragile things can be, and how change is accelerated so much. Do you see organizations out there much more vulnerable, than they've ever been before, whether it's a sports organization? I mean, if you think about the major sports, I mean, NBA, look at what's happened to them. NFL, look at the challenges they're dealing with. US Open tennis tournament, even, look at what they're dealing with. So, how do you see coming out of this the vulnerability that exists out there for those traditional sort of staples in the sports world, in the world of business, et cetera?
Yeah, no, I think that there are a lot of vulnerabilities. I mean, I know Frank Nakano, our head of sports and entertainment, who owns our work with the US Open, which we've sponsored for 39 years.
Wow.
I just saw a presentation. The Open starts this weekend, right? I hope the Open starts this weekend, like with Naomi's statement yesterday. Phew, I mean, some of these people are just being so brave with the stances that they're taking. But I did see a presentation, and where we used to have very exclusive suites. A line of businesses would get a suite. It would cost a ton of money. And I now see that we're going to be able to bring the US Open virtually to hundreds of thousands of more people than got to experience it at the US Open site. So, that might be a silver lining. Now, all the marketing strategies and engagement tactics that we're doing on social media and how we're getting people to want to attend, and the celebrities that we're bringing in to kind of entice them to participate in different ways. I think that's going to be interesting. So I'm not sure, but I do think that there are opportunities. It's just a matter of being creative and watching what our partners, what our other brands are doing for engagement that I think will really help yield good lessons for all of us.
Well, thank you. I see that David has sort of come on here to tell us that it's probably time for us to stop. But I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Lois. I mean, again, congratulations on all these amazing things you've done. And now a lot of people understand for the first time, the power of what you do and how important and how great the work that you've been doing in the community. So congratulations to you on that. And I'll turn it back over to David if unless he has anything else for me to do.
Thank you, Leonard. And I look forward to seeing you one day in person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we are counting down the days until we can bring our community back together in the real world, in person. As soon as it's safe, I promise you, Brand Innovators will be there and bringing you guys together. Lois, thank you. Leonard, thank you. Leonard, I love I don't know if that's just your wall color or if you have a real green screen in your house, but I got to do that so I can get some virtual backgrounds here and have some fun. But this was phenomenal. Indeed, we got to wrap. That's why I have popped back in. I wish I could give you more time, but the best I can say is we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Of course.
Great seeing you guys.
Thank you both. All right. So we have our next session. We have, I believe, Karen and Warren. So Karen coming in as the CMO of from Voya Financial's retirement. And then we have Warren coming in to moderate the discussion. So Karen Eisenbach and Warren Chase, welcome to our virtual stage here. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Warren, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Hey, David. How are you? I'm doing great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. That's my cue to bow out. So, Warren, I will turn the virtual stage over to you and to set up the conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Warren Chase, Chief Operating Officer of Firewood Marketing, and I'm joined today by Karen Eisenbach, Chief Marketing Officer, Retirement at Voya Financial. Hey, Karen. Good to see you.
Hey, Warren. Good to see you too.
I see you're sporting your Voya orange.
Absolutely.
I am as well. I have it on my watch. Like the other
I love
day.
it.
Although my Apple Watch keeps reminding me that I need to close my circles, and I'm not doing a great job at that lately. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks.
Awesome. And you're in Connecticut, and I'm in San Francisco. So
Yeah.
An interesting, coast to coast interview. So great having you. Karen, let's jump right in.
Okay.
So we all know, businesses large and small have been, massively impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, the subsequent economic downturn, and obviously the social and racial unrest. As many other sectors, the financial sector has been greatly impacted. So today we wanted to hear about your experience in challenges and opportunities in leading the marketing transformation at Voya. So first of all, let's just start talking about you as hoping that your family's doing well during this unprecedented time. Everything okay?
Yeah, we are. Like everybody, my husband works in one part of the house. I work in the other. My son graduated from college into the pandemic and film as a film major, and so his prospects for hiring have been delayed, but all in all, we're making it work.
That's great. Good to hear. So Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional journey.
Oh, absolutely. So I've been at Voya for almost 5 years. And I was brought in 5 years ago to really help an organization that was built by acquisition, right? To start to think about how you bring the marketing function together in the retirement business and create a more modern marketing organization. Prior to joining Voya, I was at JP Morgan in their retirement team inside asset management, and then had my own consulting business for a few years. And then the bulk of my career was at Nationwide Financial in Columbus, Ohio. And for most of it, I've been very retirement centric for pretty much most of my career, which I love, because at the end of the day, helping people save enough money so that they can retire and they have some security in retirement is kind of a cool thing to be able to be part of.
I can imagine that has kind of like prepared you for these times, right?
Is that right? Absolutely.
You've been at Voya for almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so how did the journey towards marketing transformation start at Voya?
I was thinking about you asking me that question, and I was kind of reflecting on what good marketers do, right? Good marketers, they do some analysis and understand a current state prior to building a strategy, right? And we applied all those components, if you will, of building a marketing strategy to our own team and how we fit within the Voya organization. And I think what's really cool about that, when you're given the permission, if you will, to be able to go through that kind of process, is that you can then start to put a vision for what marketing can be. And going from, and I think you see this a lot in financial services, going from a reactionary organization, I used to say when I got there, we had one-pagers to the moon and back, right? Very reactionary. I need this, go build this, to a partner that is really aligned in supporting growth and retention. And I think that's where we are today. And I'm very proud of that, but it takes a lot of work, right? You gotta have the right people in the right seats. You've got to understand what skill sets you need and then evolving those skill sets because they don't change. And it's never been more apparent that the work we've done, we had our shining moment in the sun, if you will, unfortunately, through all of this change. To have a marketing organization that can react quickly, that we have all these digital solutions available to us, right? That we can support our sales teams that are going virtual. Not only did we have to figure out how to go virtual, but we had to help our sales teams do that and our service teams so they didn't miss a beat with their clients or winning business. And so thank goodness the organization had the foresight to make those changes. And I'm so appreciative to have been the one driving those changes and then to be able to execute on it. My team feels a tremendous amount of pride.
That's wonderful. That's great to hear. So I wonder, a lot of organizations have been either forced into digital transformation and marketing transformation because of the pandemic mostly, and there's others that had a head start even before it. So where do you fall between both?
We had a head start. We really had a head start. So at Voya, in the retirement business, we have 5 million what we call plan participants, or think of them as end consumers, right? That work for large and small companies and government organizations throughout the country. And being able to connect with those 5 million and be able to share insights and education and support to help them along their financial journey or their financial wellness journey has been key. And last summer, we introduced something called Voya Learn. We took inspiration from Peloton and we created a streaming and on-demand education program for participants in all of our plans. Actually, it's available to anybody that wants to use that, but finding inspiration in the consumer world, if you will, and bringing it in. And thank goodness we did that, because all of our education had to go virtual, right? We created our education champions, and we stole a term from Bravo, and we called them our Voya Celebrities, to create some connection, if you will, and different folks in different ages to connect with, and different stages of life, right? To be able to connect with all the various consumers or plan participants that we serve. And so that was one big thing. The other thing, and the whole world has tried to go to more digital and less paper. And the retirement business is kind of hard because you have all these things you have to send, just like an investment. You have to send a prospectus, et cetera. And we started that work last year. And in part of our business, we're going to deliver in November a completely digital experience for folks thinking about enrolling in the retirement plan all the way through enrollment. So we're able to deliver an end-to-end digital journey that, yay, will save the company money, but the experience is so cool. And then with that, we're adding the ability for Spanish translation. And so starting now to be able then to connect with consumers that want to connect with us in their native language, and Spanish is the first language we're starting with. So again, those things started in advance of the pandemic, but are really what do I want to say? They're propelling us, if you will, into a more end-to-end digital contemporary experience for our customers.
Right, because I would imagine, obviously, because of the audience that you'll focus on mostly, not everybody's that technologically savvy, right? They still go to a lot of DM, a lot of printed work. So you've kind of like brought your customers, you've elevated your customers to a more digital savvy ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And even our salespeople, they love nothing more than a pitch book, a printed pitch book to take to the client, right? Well, in a digital world, you can't, or in a virtual world, you can't do that. And so how can we use technology and support it with still telling your story, but support it with video and support it in a digital package that feels unique and special, et cetera. And so we've had a lot of innovation from that standpoint, and it's been really received well. In fact, we were talking the other day, would we ever really go back to printed pitch books, for example? I don't know. I think the quality and the experience is so much further ahead than we ever thought we could get to. I think it'll be fun to see.
How much of your engagement with your clients and audiences is face to face, or used to be face to face, like events, conferences? How much of it was?
Pretty significant. So all our salespeople, probably all of it's face to face, right? In a traditional manner. Our education meetings, we were moving online, but those had a history in face to face. So, a pretty large percentage. And we're moving our client events to digital, to virtual meetings this fall. And honestly, I think another benefit of all of this is that you get crisper with your message.
Yeah.
You have to really be focused and be really clear about your intention of what you want to say, and all those extra words and extra things I was thinking about go by the wayside. So I think it's going to end up being a better result. And the need for marketers to support that, to really get crisp about the experience and about the message has, it's like, again, in the financial services world, I don't think we've ever had a better platform to do that.
One of the things that I keep hearing a lot from our clients is, obviously we need to pivot very aggressively towards, virtual and digital, especially when it comes to events. But as we look at, hopefully, within the next 12 months that we can, all come out of our hibernation in our homes, there's an expectation that we will clearly not get back to the old normal.
Yeah.
We're creating a new normal where we will see a very strong balance between virtual and face-to-face, right? It's not like, because obviously we've discovered so many benefits of being much more sharper pointed, as you said, in virtual. but people will want to get back together with people.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's really well said.
So yeah, I'm curious.
Mhm.
Is it too early to think about that?
No, I think we're going to have to, right? I think we're going to have to understand that and start to think about the best of both. So do you have to have 10 people go to a large mega sales final? Probably not. Probably a way to even evolve further in having face-to-face and technology and supporting and storytelling, right? So I think it's probably not too early to tell. I think we all need to catch our breaths, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know about you, but my team is running full out. They're probably working, I think, harder than they worked pre-pandemic, and they worked hard then, right? And so I do think we have to have a moment to catch our breath, but it's exciting to see what the future could hold in that kind of hybrid model.
Yeah, one thing we've been seeing a lot is that we are so incredibly productive now. It is
Right?
unbelievable. We get so much done because you're not trying to catch up with someone who, they're on a plane. I can't talk to them. I have to wait until they land, or, going through airports. So all of that has been, kind of like the time, the hours that we have in the day are so much more productive. I'm interested about the Voya brand and how, if at all, has it been transformed by the crisis?
A great question. So when we think about the Voya brand and we think about what we stand for, our unique culture is something that's really we hold very, very dear. And the organization has been listed as one of America's, Fortune's best places to work. We're one of very few financial services companies that are listed on gender equality or listed in, all kinds. I'm sorry, I'm losing all the list, but there's a list of all the things that accolades that we've gotten, and they're not by. They're very intentional and very purposeful because it's who we are and it's our culture. And so as market volatility was happening and COVID hit, and we really had to think about how we would support our clients, the plan sponsor, the intermediaries we work with, as well as the end consumer, the participant in the plan. And so we quickly came to market in the retirement plan business with what we called a fee credit. Mm-hmm. So there was something called the CARES Act that would allow folks to take money out of their retirement plan if they needed it, right?
Yep.
And so we gave them a credit for their fees, and we extended that through the year. We had it this year for the full year, and it's been received really, really well. We worked with our advisors in supporting them. We worked with the plan sponsors in supporting them and helping them work through it. And so being able to live the brand has been really important. Coming up in September, we have our employee giving campaign. And this year it's all virtual, but we're really focused on how we as a whole community of, nearly 5,000 employees, our communities really need us. The nonprofits really need us. We could have easily pushed that off, but we're not. We're doubling down on that and really making sure we're doing everything we can to support those in need.
That's great. I wonder if, because these are the times where, the rubber kind of meets the road, right? Especially in your segment and, with your audience. Has anything changed from a customer expectation of Voya and their support that they're getting? I mean, I'm assuming that there's a lot of very anxious people out there.
They really are. And, you think about a call center, overnight, our call center went from being in the office to being totally virtual. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness we had plans in place to make that happen. And why that was so important is, if you needed money or you just wanted to talk to someone or you wanted to ask a question, having someone be there. And so call volumes went really, really high. And, having technology to do callbacks, and to call somebody back later, save your queue in line, or became really, really important. And we never saw how all those innovations coming together really impacted the customer experience. And I will tell you, call volumes have come back down, but length of calls have continued to be longer. People want to talk, people want to understand. And when you get the after call surveys, consistently we're at 97, 98% satisfaction, because they appreciate, and I guess this is really to your point, they appreciate that you're there. They really appreciate that you're there. One of the things that that happens in October is National Retirement Security Week. There's a day, there's a week.
I didn't know that there was a week for that.
For everything. And I think this year will take on special significance because so many people weren't prepared or aren't prepared and are saying, what do I need to do to be prepared? How can you help me? How can you help me think about an emergency fund? Maybe I got to think about that going forward, because I always said I'd do it another day, right? What do I need to do to be prepared? And so anybody that's in the financial services business, whether you're in the retirement space, helping somebody with the retirement savings, or you're a financial advisor, these people are so important to all Americans. They're important to everyone, and they bring such expertise and support that I think that's one of the things we'll see coming out of this is the continued value on advice, right? The continued value on the advisor and support and helping me get through that.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder, as we continue to work from home, and who knows how long, this is going to last, depending on, where you are in the region that you're in, and not having that face-to-face time with your team. I wonder how has this changed you as a leader?
So my team and I have always had a lot of connections. We have a Friday gratitude huddle where we take 15 minutes just to say thanks for whatever happened during the week. And it used to be just us saying thanks, and now our partners are saying thanks, so things like that we've continued, and it has felt even more special, right? And this time we now laugh because certain members of the team, their kids will show up, or they'll tell a funny story of something happened in their family, a dog, a cat, whatever, and so we've learned to really celebrate that. With my direct reports, we have more huddles. We have 3 huddles a week for 15 minutes just to check in. And of course, like everybody, lots of Zoom. Even though as much of an extrovert as I am, being on Zoom all day can be exhausting, right? And so we've worked really hard to think about, as a company, we've thought about a flexibility pledge. So what are all of us as leaders doing to demonstrate we're taking time off, we're outside getting fresh air and exercise, we're taking care of ourselves. And we implemented that in the marketing team as well. We have a very young team with lots of young children and managing school and day. I don't know how everybody's doing it. And so we've tried really hard to figure out new ways to be flexible in getting the work done. So if you're not client facing, how do we do that? And how do we communicate as a team so we know who's on when? But we've been incredibly flexible, which again, for a financial services company who's pretty standard in how you do stuff, has been a big change and a big part of the Voya community. The other thing that I would say is our leaders, all the way up to the CEO, we started out in April having town halls every week or a week and a half just to check in. So we over communicated and literally took any question an employee had, and if we couldn't answer it on that call, we followed up. Now the town halls have slowed down a bit. They're every 3 weeks now, but still, our retirement business has nearly 2,000 employees, and we get almost 2,000 employees on those calls. And so everybody wants to feel connected. And I think broadly, our leaders have been more connected with the greater community, the greater Voya community more than ever before. I hope that's something that we keep because it's really pretty special.
Yeah. I wonder if you guys have been onboarding new team members since the pandemic started.
Yeah. Our call center has had to do that, like so many call centers, and they figured out how to do that virtually, right? And the technology, getting really good at Zoom and finding ways to engage folks. On the marketing team as well, we had an intern. She just graduated from high school. Can you imagine that? Just graduating from high school, you're going to have an internship for the summer with the marketing department at Voya.
Yeah.
And you don't get to see anybody.
Yeah.
And, you just make it happen, and people have more time, right? It seems like you have more time to have those conversations, and we've just made it work. I don't think there's anything rocket science there, and we find inspiration from what other companies are doing and what our spouses or partners, their firms are doing, and then we try it.
Yeah, these are certainly really, weird times. From our perspective, we have continued to grow, even within these crazy times, which is great. But imagine from an agency perspective, like onboarding new team members, especially when creatives are so, productive, working together with other people, and you're onboarding new team members, and they never get to see everybody in person. So it's a really, really interesting time.
So can I ask you a question, Warren?
Yes,
of course. How's that gone for you? Yeah. I mean, I think that's really interesting, the onboarding of creatives, right? And I'd be curious to hear that.
I have to say, yes, very, very long, like Zoom sessions or Hangout sessions where, and what we have been discovering is like, we just leave the channel open, like it's it's on all day, and creatives are, working together, doing back and forth. And instead of scheduling a call, they're just on all day, like they were in the same room. So they have a Hangout channel. Yeah. So it's like it becomes less of a scheduled call and more of an ongoing, always on channel.
Oh, I'm gonna have to steal that. What a great idea.
Well, well, we have to make with what you have, right?
Totally.
Make with what you have. I'm curious, because I want to get to questions from the audience, and we have a couple of them. So how does 2021 look like for you?
From a marketing standpoint, I think 2021. Well, I'm sorry, I'm thinking and talking out loud at the same time. I think for 2021, what we're having, conversations we're starting to have is, can we continue at the same pace, right? So when you think about an organization that has evolved from an order taker to integrated with a business partner, we've elevated already the work we've done. Now with what's been happening, we've taken it even another level, and we're going to go have a conversation with our business partners at a check-in to say, are we still in balance? Are these still the right things we should be working on? And should we have even more focus?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to get more resources, right? Financially, it's just a tough time. And so we're not going to get more resources. How do we be smarter and even more focused so that we know the things that we're doing are driving either growth and retention? The one thing that I think we've worked hard on, but we've not cracked the code on, is our dashboards. We're just not there yet. We're measuring a lot of things. We're starting to understand attribution, right, to winning business, but we're still not there. And I think that's gonna take some focus for us at the end of the year and even in the first quarter to just get better at that. It's kind of like one of those things you keep saying you'll get to it, but something else jumps in the way. And kind of back to resources and focus, I think we owe it to our business partners to really have that buttoned up in a way where maybe because we don't have it, we really can't demonstrate why we need more resources. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or maybe we don't need more resources, maybe there's certain things we shouldn't be working on. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that will be really, really important for the team.
Yeah, I think this question kind of like connects to that one. Someone asks, what are your predictions for marketing in general, or perhaps specific to the financial services category?
Good question. I think we're going to continue to see greater digital engagement. One of the things in financial services about digital engagement, when somebody registers their account, and agrees to get information digitally, it's actually safer. There's a lot of fraudsters out there trying to take over accounts, et cetera. And so the more connected digitally our customers are, it's actually better for them. We know they save more. We know they're more engaged. And so I think that level of continued engagement, digital engagement, is going to be really important. But I also think, kind of to your point a little earlier, is that we're going to have to figure out what this hybrid model is between face-to-face and virtual. And I think that will then impact all the traditional marketing things, right? That you have to do. And so I guess I don't really have an answer. I'm not sure what that is. Mm-hmm. I think all of us over the next 6 months will really start to figure that out. The one thing I do know, though, is I think we'll see greater innovation, in how we connect, the stories we tell, the outcomes we demonstrate.
Yeah. One last question from the audience. How do you envision technology changing, if at all, to support a new generation of workers who work from home?
It's a great question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. But I do know that what we've all experienced with technology, and people that wouldn't have thought they could leverage technology the way it is, I think in some respects it's brought us all closer together. And I think our younger employees are driving that in some respect. And in doing so, I think it gets us to greater innovation. It allows us to connect in new ways. And so I don't know what that is, but I think there will be a lot of goodness as a result.
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenges for those is, how do you build culture and maintain a company culture, and how do you balance am I working, am I just at home, spending time with my family? Because the line doesn't exist anymore, right? It's gone.
Yeah, good point.
So those are really big challenges, I think, when you're looking at people who work from home. Mm-hmm. Karen, I wonder, when all of this is over, what do you want to do? Get on a plane and go where?
I want to go to London to visit my daughter. Last summer, we moved my daughter to London to go to business school, and we haven't seen her. Oh. And so I want to go to London to visit her.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I can't wait myself. I can't wait.
Right? I can't wait.
So I think that might be it from us. I guess I'm gonna turn it back to David. Thank you, Karen. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Warren. What a treat.
Thank you both. This was fantastic. I think we have just 1 minute before the next session. So can I ask you guys each a question? It's me the same question. And I was doing this, the last time I emceed. On a personal level, have you noticed your own habits or behaviors change in any ways, like streaming new shows or different kinds of shows? Have you taken up any new hobbies, that kind of thing?
Karen, you go first.
We've taken up a new hobby, my husband and I. We kayak.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, how about that? It's really been fun.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's just been great. So that was a new thing that we've done, to just be outside, right? We love to bike and we love to walk, but kayaking is new.
Fantastic. I love it.
And I guess from my experience, well, first of all, I finished Netflix. There's nothing to watch.
Nothing left.
Me too.
All done. Check. So I took up cooking. I'm actually cooking now.
Definitely. I mean, that's in my opinion, it's the best hobby, because then you not only do have the action of doing it, but then you get the benefit of eating it afterwards. So it has like a twofold effect. But no, this was great. Thank you both so much. We really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing with our community, and we'll have you back again soon. So thank you, Warren. And thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.
Of course.
Bye.
All right, we're gonna keep the program rolling. A fantastic speaker coming up. We have Allison Witherspoon, the Vice President of Marketing Communications and Media at Nissan Motors of America. We have Charlotte Tansel, the Executive Director and Head of Social at Ogilvy, a WPP agency, going to be moderating this discussion. So let's welcome Allison, a relatively recent but now frequent participant in our community. We love having you join us, Allison. So thank you again for popping back in. Charlotte, welcome to the virtual stage. How are you both doing today?
Doing well. Doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. Today is going fantastically. We've had some great speakers and great content, and we're thrilled to have you both joining us. So Charlotte, I will turn it over to you. The virtual floor is yours to set the stage for the conversation.
Great. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. Thanks so much for the introduction, David. And hi, Allison. Good to see you. So thrilled to be here with you and to have the opportunity to chat about social media and questions for you. But before we do that, maybe you wouldn't mind just telling the audience a little bit more about yourself and what path brought you to your current role as US CMO.
Yep. So I am the CMO for Nissan North America and with specific responsibilities for the US. I've actually been in automotive my entire career. I love cars and I love marketing. So this was it's been the perfect career for me. I started out consulting for Mercedes-Benz, and then I transitioned to agency side, and I led agency teams at BMW, and then the global agency team for Volvo, which took me to Amsterdam, which is where the global agency team was headquartered. From there, I then had to put away my agency shoes. I had to hang up my agency shoes, and I was the director of marketing, my first client side role for Infiniti, which is part of the Nissan family and is the luxury brand for Nissan. So as the head of marketing in the US for Infiniti. From there, I then took a role based out of Japan, which is where our global headquarters are. And I was the number 2 in global marketing, working for the global CMO. So spent 2 years in Japan, learned a ton, and then came back in April of 2019 as the US CMO.
Wow, that's quite a trajectory, and I love the international experience. I'm sure that's brought so much value to you as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Great. So I'll go ahead and then dive right into the questions. I thought it might be timely to jump right into sort of the reality of where we are today, knowing that 2020 has been one for the ages with the global pandemic, social unrest, the upcoming election, and so relevant to social, right? So
yeah,
social being at sort of that intersection between brands and their consumers and seeing such fast sort of behavior change. So curious about how Nissan has been thinking about listening to and studying these sort of fast changing consumer behaviors.
And I think and that was, I think that was the key part of it. It's really listening and tracking where the consumer behavior sentiment was. And I was listening in on the session before us, and you know, the joke about I got to the end of Netflix in that comment. And I feel like, you know, things are changing so rapidly. Where we were at the beginning of March was very different 2 weeks in, and then now fast forward a full 6 months. And we've gone through kind of 3 or 4 different full life cycles of consumer behavior. For us, the most important thing right out of the gate, you know, in, you know, kind of the middle of March, right as the lockdowns and the quarantines were starting to happen, was to really listen to consumers. And social media was the fastest way for us to do that, to understand what they were looking for from us as a brand. What were they needing? Because the reality is that in the automotive industry, things just completely collapsed overnight. And dealerships were not, you know, they were not considered essential services outside of the service bays. If you needed to have maintenance work done on your car. So people weren't actually able to go. And I think it just overnight, things really changed. We had about 30% of our dealer network was closed. And so we had to immediately shift how we were thinking. we had grand campaign plans. We were, one of the corporate partners for NCAA. We had all of this content, and so much of it was social, and we had to completely stop that overnight. And I think the biggest thing was really listening in and using our social listening tools to understand what are people's needs, what are they interested in. And we set out at the very, in June, right at the very, or sorry, it's been a while.
Earlier
we
than
set
that.
out, we set out in March and really started to focus on what are the support tools? What do people need right now? And then it was about building community. And how can we build community? How can we tap into what are things that people need? How can we support them, whether it's on the vehicle side or just even breaking from boredom? I think you started to see, and I think all of us are feeling it, is, how can we shift out of this, what seemed kind of, interesting at first and working from home, and I can adjust to this, to all of the pressure that started to happen. Consumers are feeling that. They're feeling that with their families. They're feeling that with having, with working from home. They're feeling with that and balancing all of it together in the middle of a massive health scare. And so it was really tapping into listening to that through social media and then starting to build content around it. And I think what was interesting is that, again, we had, major sports platforms that was there to communicate our message that wasn't available anymore. And we shifted all of our focus into social media, really aligning around this strategy and then just building content around it. And it's something that we're still doing and evolving it over, that we've evolved over the last several months.
That's interesting. Were there any sort of major acts or initiatives that Nissan did sort of coming out of that listening and that research?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the biggest thing was really understanding how people what they're needing from their vehicles. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing is, if you're in the market, and not many people were because of the lockdown, how could we make that process easier for you, knowing that there was health scares and, fear of leaving your house, and then also the economic concerns. So, there were certain, kind of offers that were in place for consumers that were in the market. There was also what happened if you were a frontline worker and you needed your car serviced, and how can we support you, and how can we do drop off and delivery, those types of things. And it's really understanding and at a grassroots level, we were starting to do that. I think the other thing too, and fast forward a few weeks, once things started to open back up, there was still the concern, obviously, with health and safety. And how do we do that in an environment that is built to be physical, which is a dealership? And so based on what we heard in social media, we knew people were afraid to leave their homes, or they didn't want to go and do a physical shopping experience. So how can we start to bring a lot of those online shopping tools to them so they can do that in the comfort of their own home on the website? So we actually launched this initiative in May called Shop at Home, where it was about organizing and creating these shopping tools to allow people to do as much shopping behavior as they could up to the point of transaction, and then have our dealers pick up with their online transaction tools. And so, I think the interesting thing is online shopping isn't a new thing by any means, but it is not as prevalent in automotive. And we had already had these plans were already in place, but it was really about accelerating those. And something that maybe a project was 6 months or a year out, we accelerated that to be, a matter of weeks. And those insights really came from listening in and seeing how people were responding and using those tools from social media.
Yeah, it sounds like it was almost an impetus for some level of digital transformation, which I think a lot of companies are seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And I've been in automotive my entire career. I am a digital native, so I was ready for this. And there were plans in place, but it really it was a catalyst to accelerate all of that. And the reality is that consumer behavior isn't going to revert back to where we were 100%. People are going to want, and they already did, and now we have tools in place for them to do all of this activity online if they're not comfortable going to the dealership. If you want to go, obviously dealerships are open again. You can still shop that way, but this allows for a separate path, and it's based on how consumers want to shop, not how we dictate they should shop, which I think is the most important and probably the biggest shift, actually.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you're speaking to sort of building this customer experience. I'm so interested about sort of brand building and how all the events of 2020 have potentially pushed Nissan into thinking more about sort of brand purpose or double downing on brand purpose. Would you mind sort of speaking a little bit to that?
Sure. And we started down the path of brand purpose at the very beginning, it kind of towards the end of 2019, at the very beginning of the year. So we actually had this in place, and it was about giving credibility to innovation and excitement for everyone, which is, that is, our vision. But it was really about giving that credibility. And typically what you do is you align that with product and what your product launches are going to be. And I think with COVID, product launches we weren't trying to sell cars anymore, which was a very uncomfortable thing. No, when you've been doing that for so long and an entire organization has been doing that. And we really reoriented around this brand purpose and how can we use this time when it's not about what we call in automotive butts and seats, how do we reorient about how do we drive innovation and excitement for everyone? And what does that mean even when you can't get in your car, what happens when you're in the car, but also what happens when you can't actually drive because of you're in lockdown. And so that's where we started, there's how do we support, how do we build communities? And then also this breaking from boredom. And it was around how you can use your car as your own office, if you're wanting to get away from your family, if you need just a little bit of quiet time, there's that piece of it. How do you disinfect your car? And, how do you actually make sure that is a healthy and safe place? We just launched some content we launched some content about superheroes and really honoring frontline workers. We also talked about in social media and created some content and partnered with Randy Newman actually on a track. And it was about the role of cars during the lockdown and how you see these lines of cars for graduations and weddings and grandmothers kissing their newborn grandbabies and things like that, and kind of honoring that. And I think it's a way to acknowledge what's going on, but to also give people a little bit of levity and some hope, which I think is important. And I think in our corporate communications team just yesterday, they also launched, how do you keep your pet safe when they're in the car and things like that. So I think there's just, it's a little bit of product, it's a little bit of, information. And then, during, kind of the lockdown, it was about, breaking from boredom, but all of it was really rooted in innovation and excitement for everyone. So how can everyone get the most out of their car during this lockdown?
And in this time of sort of social unrest, I'm curious if all the sort of conversations happening surrounding Black Lives Matter, we just had Pride Month, if that's sort of an understanding that increasingly consumers want to buy brands with sort of aligned values and sort of shared purpose. Curious if that swell of conversation in social media has caused some, important sort of conversations in the senior rooms of Nissan.
I mean, absolutely. I think it's, how could it not? And I think it was very important for that to happen. And I know from, our experience at Nissan, it has absolutely been a part of those conversations at a very senior level. And it has been a part of something that everyone has now, pledged a commitment to try to advance and try to be better at this. And so I think, and even when we think about social media, you think about, whether it's the boycott or Blackout Tuesday, I think, again, it goes back to the brand purpose. And for Nissan, we are a very diverse company. I think we were actually the most diverse Japanese company when we were founded at the time. We had a very diverse board. So it's in our DNA, it's in our consumer base, and it's something that we embrace and we love that about our brand. And I think it's just making sure that we have a constant effort and commitment to supporting every person that the brand comes into contact with. And that's what we've tried to do. I think, specific to Black Lives Matter, we actually were partners with BET, and there was the BET Awards, which was happening, right as social unrest was going on. And we were thinking about what are ways for us to actually show action. And again, and looking what's going on in social media, what are the conversations that people are having? How are people talking about Black Lives Matter? How are they talking about diversity inclusion? And I think the biggest thing that came out was really, it's about showing action, and it's about showing meaningful action, and that can be very large or it can be, local or grassroots. And what we did with our BET partnership is that we actually just said, now is not the time to be advertising a product. And again, it's not the moment, during this award show and during where the conversation is going to be universally around supporting Black Lives Matter. It was really going to be about how do we support that and how do we show our support to the community. And so we actually donated our airtime to Black Girls Code, which is an organization that we had worked with in the past that provides education and schooling for girls that are interested in STEM. And obviously we're a huge proponent and a huge organization that's part of STEM. And we thought, and we have worked together in the past. So we actually donated our time, our airtime. We also donated our personal time, which I think is actually even more important as well, and helping them put together this campaign, this national campaign. And I think it's, that for us, and we will continue to support the Black community. But it was really about showing those actions and kind of using that moment in time to support that, both through the broadcast as well as in social media.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. It's clear that Nissan didn't view it as sort of an opportunistic moment. Nissan wanted to show its authentic commitment by giving up that airtime. How wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
And so I guess if we step out of 2020 for a moment, and yeah.
What does that look like? It's like roses, everything's light and airy.
Exactly. We'll all continue to dream of this moment when we're out of 2020. But social, I think for both of us, having worked in social for so long, we've seen it change over the last a decade and beyond. I remember the MySpace days, but I was just curious if you might highlight some of the key changes you've seen, and then what are sort of key implications for brands at large today.
Yeah, I think probably, starting at the beginning, it was all about fans, right? And it was who could get the most fans and that type of thing. I think, very quickly, I think one of the pivotal moments was actually when paid social media came into play. And once the algorithm started to be less friendly towards brand and organic, and it became much more about paid. And so I think you started to see a very different shift, and it became less about, how many fans do you have, which I feel like we don't even refer to anymore. And it became much more about engagement. How are you, we have what we call key buying actions. So how are you driving key buying actions? What does your sentiment look like? How are people, the conversations that are taking place in social media? And so I feel like the role of it has changed very much from just supporting an enthusiast community to you're supporting an enthusiast community. And I don't think that will ever go away, but you're also driving business and driving the brand on top of that and reaching people that may not be familiar with your brand, which I think is actually what's really exciting. Is that, through paid, you're able to reach people that may not have considered you before. The use of influencers definitely can serve that purpose. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. I think, one of the most successful, I guess, social media campaigns that I was a part of was actually at BMW. And it was, I think the important piece of it was, it was in 2011, and BMW was a part of the Super Bowl. So they were part of the Super Bowl. And what we wanted to do is really show how you could use Super Bowl, but show how you could use social media to drive business objectives. And so there was a campaign that was about the X3 at the time, and it was about all these different configurations, and there was an Easter egg in the spot, and kind of all these things. And the beauty of it was that, the car sold out for, 2 to 3 months, after the Super Bowl campaign ran. And that to me really showed the impact of the platforms and of the channels. And then it's just been building on since then. And I think, now we don't do anything that doesn't have a social component that is either leading or a very fast follow as part of it. But in most cases, it's always leading.
Yeah, that's interesting, because as socials become more pay to play and not sort of the free channel that it was previously, I think some sort of see that as a prohibitor for social, but it actually presented an enormous opportunity for brands to reach and influence people that weren't currently following them, exactly as you said.
Yeah. And I think more and more, I think that this is how, especially when you think about Generation Z, I think that's how they're going to be discovering brands, because it's not going to be on, kind of network TV. It's not going to be in the primetime shows, most likely. I think this is how people will be discovering brands. And if you think about it, the level of social media is, has surpassed the level of network TV. And so you get that scale, but you also get that highly targeted opportunity as well, which is really interesting and important when you think about, efficiency of spend as an example.
Yeah. And so I guess you're speaking to the overall sort of role of social in Nissan sort of marketing mix. I'm curious, do you see it as a brand building sort of tool, a lead generation tool, or it sounds like perhaps it's both, and how are you finding that the balance between those?
Yeah, for us, it's both. I think what we're trying to do is really evolve. I think as a brand, we've been very kind of sales oriented historically. Over the last year or so, we've been trying to transition into very much a brand led. So I think we are trying to do both. I think we will always lead with brand, but it's going to be brand with purpose. And it's going to be either to excite our owners, excite our fans, excite the community, or it's going to be to introduce Nissan to people who aren't familiar, or introduce Nissan in a way that maybe they haven't seen before. So for us, it's both. And I think when we look at how do we differentiate those two things, I think we look at it's audience based. And so we look at who are people that are going to be in market in the next 30 days. And that's going to be a very different use of social media and the targeting and what that messaging is going to be. And then when you're looking at people that are going to be in market to buy a car, if it's 60 days to 6 months out, that's a slightly different message, and that'll be a little bit more branded. And then if it's something if they're 6 months out or more from buying a car, very much branded. So we actually let the audience and where they are in their car shopping process help drive what type of messaging they have. But I think strategically, when we look at social media, we look at it first as brand building and then a very fast follow in business driving.
It sounds like you're almost building sort of audience pools and creating sort of tailored journeys and experiences. And
yep, and 100%, that's exactly what we do. And we do that actually by model. So we have 21 models that we support in our portfolio, and we do that across our entire portfolio.
It's a pretty sophisticated segmentation strategy.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of audience segmentation work that we do. But I think I think that's what social media has kind of brought to the table. These platforms, and you can argue, kind of the pros and cons of them all day, any day. But the reality is that we are able to understand so much more about consumers and where they are in the shopping process and what their interests are. And I think that we have used that data to enable a much more relevant message, as opposed to just kind of, throwing out a lease offer to every single person that we can possibly find, whether or not that's relevant to them and whether or not even that model is relevant to them. And I think that's what's exciting. And that's what social media and these platforms have started to enable us to do.
And because I think about different platforms, right? And I guess with such a sophisticated segmentation strategy with Facebook and Instagram, the targeting capabilities, the paid capabilities are more advanced. With the sort of newer channels, less so. How do you find that sort of channel strategy and that right balance of going to where your consumers are, but also being where the tools are most sophisticated?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a balance. And I think, I think obviously with Facebook and Instagram, and hopefully in the near future, WhatsApp, we are, that audience segmentation tool is the same, and it is highly, it is very advanced. I think the same thing for YouTube, if you're considering that YouTube is social media and, it's a content channel, but you can argue it one or the other.
Sure.
So I think obviously they have a lot of segmentation tools. I think and Twitter is the same. And so I think when you look at Twitter plays a little bit of a different role in that when you think about the channel is really about kind of what is that news, what's really, I think they call it what's happening now. And so it's how can you be in that real-time content and how can we be a part of that discussion? And so the content strategy there is very different than what we would have on Instagram or Facebook. And then when you think about Snapchat, that's going to be, very much about the engagement. How can you empower an experience? And then, in discussions with TikTok, depending on what happens with TikTok, it would be very similar. So how can we empower an experience there? And what is the role of brands? I think, with Snap, and when I was at Infinity, we were doing kind of one of the first filters with one of our vehicle launches. And so I think there are just really interesting ways that you can be a brand without it feeling so I'm a brand, I'm in your face type advertising, which is nice.
And I guess adapting sort of the measurement strategy to the platform strength. So, when you went into Snap with Infinity, I'm sure you had had to decide what success would look like. So curious if you might just talk a little bit to how you think about measuring success in social.
Yeah, I mean, measurement and success, it definitely is very specific to the channel. And I think one of the frustrating things, as a marketer and as an advertiser is that the walled gardens, there are different measurement tools. There are different ways that they measure things. So sometimes it's hard to do comparisons against the platforms, but obviously we try. Mm-hmm. I think for us, there are sometimes we will be doing campaigns where it is about engagement. Other times it will be about what those key buying actions are or how can we drive that. If we're doing something that is a little bit more introduction or reveal, it's going to be about, just kind of, the overall, what is our reach on it? So it actually depends very much by campaign. I think when we're looking at more of our key buying action or business driving campaigns, we even look down to, how is it converting to sale? And so we try not to apply just one size fits all because I don't think that's realistic because, you're going to be trying to communicate different things, especially when you're trying to be much more targeted based on, where consumers are in the shopping process. But, it is important to be able to assess the different tools against each other. But I think we have to be pragmatic about not thinking that everything is going to be about conversion driving, as well as not everything is going to be just about pure reach, and be, really clear about that going into the campaign, because at the end of the day, part of my role is always going to be to defend and justify why we did what we did and why we spent what we spent. And so setting those parameters up front before we actually get into the campaign is really important. And then obviously the tracking part of it.
And you're at your level to be bringing that depth of understanding about the strengths of each of the channels, and you're really tailoring everything to the specific social channel is just so great to hear.
Yeah, it's I guess MySpace was maybe the first one, but I just what I really like about social media as both a user of it as well as a CMO is that I like that it's basically just kind of it's formalized just what was normal human behavior. Human behavior is I'm looking for something new. Who is a subject matter expert and how can I get some details on it, before I actually go and purchase it or before I, do this. And I think that was natural behavior already. It was phone calls and letters, pigeons, emails. And,
Yes.
and then it became about social media. And then that reach became so large. And you can get so much feedback, and it all became real time. And what I really like about it is I like that it's really formalized that normal natural behavior.
Yeah, you can always just use the filter of would I engage with this, or there's just a level of like practicality.
Yeah. And who doesn't love a good meme? I mean, who doesn't love that?
So much. I just have one. We're getting some questions from the audience, which is great. One more before I pivot there is about, and you mentioned it throughout this conversation, is the importance of your dealer network. And even if, digital transformation and Nissan, I imagine it sort of caused something similar in your dealer partners, but curious how you're partnering with them for social media efforts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. And I think it's interesting. I just had a meeting with our dealer board yesterday, and we were getting them up to speed, and they were like, this, social media is our priority. And I realized like the conversations are working. Everyone's seeing the power. And the reason that they're seeing the power is that when the pandemic hit and we're starting to get into a little bit more of the recovery phase, we are realizing that social media could be a great platform for the dealers to talk about what they were doing in their stores and how they were going to be keeping consumers, safety and health was top priority. And so we worked with Facebook, and we started to set up this pilot program of live streams. And basically, we worked with a few of our dealers across the country, and it was really about they were shooting content themselves in the dealership. It could be with product or not, but it was really just about what they're doing. And it started to take off. It really took off. And so we had 5 dealers that were starting it. They had over 100 videos. There were over 100,000 views just in a very short amount of time. And we started to roll that out. And I think what was interesting, and I was having this discussion with our dealer board, is that, one of the dealers had, almost 200 people tuning into the live stream. And while that number may not seem like it's huge, that is the equivalent of 200 people walking through the showroom at that second.
It never happens.
And
yeah,
exactly. And I think, and I was in talking to the board, I was like, when was the last time 200 people walked through your showroom all at the same time? And it was, this light bulb went off, and then it was just, they understood that this is the new traffic. And that's why we're rolling it out. But I think, platforms like that, we also talked about how you can use WebEx or Zoom to do transactions. You can do FaceTimes, obviously safe. You have to make sure it's hands-free if you're wanting to do test drives and things like that. But there's so many of these tools that are available that provide convenience for consumers and are a way to engage with consumers that they don't necessarily have to come into the showroom anymore. And I think that's what's been really interesting. And they're really embracing it, and they're having a lot of fun with the content. Actually, it's been an employee motivation piece of it, which I thought was really interesting, and definitely an added benefit that we didn't necessarily consider when we first were talking about it.
Perfect, thanks. So I'll pivot to these questions.
Okay.
I have 5 rapid fire questions for you with just quick responses. But maybe for the audience, you could tell us your favorite social media channel for personal use.
For personal use, I love Instagram. I just love it. It's visual, it's quick. I love stories. But yeah, I like the visual. I love the visual one. Yeah, exactly. It's perfect for my ADD, probably.
Favorite social media channel for Nissan?
I also like, this is probably 2. I also like Instagram because, again, it's these short stories and short visual ways. I also like YouTube because, again, if you consider YouTube a social channel, I like that because you're able to go into a little bit more detail depending on if people are looking for that. So I like that you can have a little bit longer form content.
And tap into the power of search. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And who doesn't love that?
Totally. What is the most effective social media channel for Nissan?
I would say the most effective is Facebook. So Facebook would be the most effective channel for Nissan.
And do you have a favorite TikTok trend?
TikTok is, when I first got into TikTok, it was like I got sucked into a black hole, and it was 2 hours later. I'm just like,
haven't we all?
I love the Taylor Swift. I love the "Marry Me" piece of it. I also, what I love about it is I love the creativity. It's just fun. And I think that's why it's really taken off, especially now, because it's just a good time and people are having fun and they're dancing. So I think the Taylor Swift is the favorite one. I also just I like how people are getting creative with the transition. So I know that it's in, several of them. I think the WAP trend is hilarious. People are adopting that. So I just all of it. I love all of it.
I guess the topic of the session is positivity in social media. Maybe we should have talked about TikTok, or knowing it's a statement.
Are we allowed to?
Yeah, that's true. And then, do you have a favorite Instagram page, whether it's an influencer? Or,
So there are quite a few. I love Jen Atkin, who is a hairstylist, and she owns the brand. She owns The Way, which is a hair care brand. I love how she is combined, she's the founder of it. So I like how she's kind of curated things for herself personally, but then also how she ties that into the brand. And I appreciate the brand consistency and the brand purpose that she has on that. And then I think for influencers, I really like Melissa Wood Health. I think she's empowering. I think she's provided a lot of ways for us to keep healthy during this time. So that's another good one. And then Brandon Collinsworth, I think I'm getting that one right. For just, if you want to kind of stay on top of what's going on when it comes to social justice, I think that one's good. And then the last one, maybe I have too many, but the other one that I really started liking is this one called So You Want to Know About. And it's just these little quick hits of just kind of top line things that are, that go into deep onto different issues or situations that are going on in culture in the community.
I took note of it. I'm going to have to check it out.
It's a good one. It's a really good one.
Well, thanks for answering those. We have some really fantastic questions sort of coming in from the audience. There's someone asking around podcasts and if that's a part of Nissan's marketing mix.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's, we're starting to get into that more and more, especially when you think about terrestrial radio has obviously changed over the last several months. So podcast has become a much more important part of our mix. We have some launches that are coming up that we're going to have, their podcast will be they'll have a more prominent role in it. But again, I think it's that switch from terrestrial radio really went into streaming, as the pandemic has been hitting, and we've seen that trend continue.
Yeah, speaking of a place where behaviors have changed, because once you remove the commute,
Yep, exactly. And I think that's what's interesting about podcasts, in that it's a very mobile format. I think you can take it on a run. You can play it in your car. We have Nissan Connect, so obviously you can play that once you get into the car, which is wonderful. And that's what I think people are looking for. They're wanting these really convenient and mobile formats so they can listen to content. And I think, from our standpoint, we can align our brand with certain types of content, depending on what it is that we're wanting to communicate.
The next one is, how are you planning with the Titans and Nissan Stadium to leverage your sponsorship assets in this time?
We've had a great relationship with the Titans, and obviously it's a very different environment now when you have a big stadium sponsorship. I think we've been working with them on, we haven't had any activity over the past 6 months. How can we work together to kind of co-promote some of the things? So actually the Titans came in and really promoted a lot of the work that we were doing within the community, some of the things that we're doing at a brand standpoint. So that was very helpful. And then we've been working in lockstep with them as the season starts to open, and what does that look like? And I think that's been, we're in a long-term, relationship with them. We love working with the Titans. And I think it's, how do we make a stadium sponsorship work given the current time frame? And I think we've come to some really good solutions about what does that look like outside of the physical stadium.
Yeah, as someone that's such an expert in social, I guess you're used to change, you're used to pivoting, and
it's
part
almost
of the fun of the job. Yeah,
it's whiplash, and it's been whiplash inducing lately. But yeah, I think we have to, and I think that's the other thing. And I'm sure every discussion that I've either participated in or watched it, we've all been, and there's a Slack channel for CMOs that we're all kind of on. What we're all talking about is we're talking about just the rate of change and how, the days of taking 6 months to do a campaign, they just don't exist anymore. And there's something that's traumatizing about that, but there's also something that's very freeing. And I think it's been freeing to be able to break through and when able to break through when it comes to speed to market. And I think social has been what has enabled that because it is something where you can do, content doesn't have to be, so perfect. It needs to be engaging. It needs to deliver on what the objective is. But it's something that you can get out and you can have that conversation with the community. And that's the most important part.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's been the disruptor of the industry. In a lot of ways, it's been the impetus that's sort of driving change and the pull toward agility.
Yep.
This question's about your personal leadership style and how it's changed over the last couple months. And then have you been able to develop more personal relationships with your colleagues and partners?
Yeah, that is an awesome question. I would say over the last few months, I think that there is, I'm probably going to be a little bit too transparent in this, but I think, when the pandemic first hit, there's kind of this moment where it's like, oh shit, what's happening? Yeah. And, and then all of a sudden you just go into, kind of beast mode. And it was just like, this is what we need to do. And I think it was almost like, you can't wait. And I think I definitely kind of, I became, always proactive, but it just became about like, we're not waiting. We're not waiting for the green light. We are just going. And, we're going to keep going. I'm going to, keep, the necessary stakeholders in the loop, but we are going. We do not want to, we don't want to like lose any ground in this moment. So I would just say, the proactiveness has been there. And I think the personal relationships, that's been what's been really interesting. And that I would say, yes, I personally, and I know my team is as well, I think we're all struggling with the Zoom fatigue. And, there's just something that's very taxing about that. But I also think it has been a way for us to connect with people and see each other's homes and children and pets and a little bit more of daily lives. And I think, even, kind of as the Black Lives Matter protest started in June, it's, checking in with different team members and kind of understanding what they're going through and talking to them. And so I would say yes. And I would say in my peers, the peers at my level, even, I think we've become very close because we've just kind of been in this, this pressure cooker and really trying to really react quickly. And it's definitely bonded us. It's bonded at my level, and it's bonded me with my team, I think.
Yeah, I think even how you open that saying, it's that vulnerability, I think, is actually more and more expected of leaders, and 2020 has I think pushed a lot of people into that, into sort of showing that vulnerability, which is great.
Yeah.
And perhaps one final question. We only have 2 minutes left. This person's asked, do you have any predictions for marketing in general, or perhaps specific to the automotive category?
I think for marketing in general, I think probably the biggest trend is I think this sounds a little, I would say the use of influencers, I think will probably be one of the biggest ones. Mm-hmm. And content that will come out of that, I think that will be longer term. And this is very much longer term, is going to be, what is the role of connected cars, and what role does marketing play? That's part of that when cars actually start to interact with other cars. Obviously that's much further down the road. But for me, I just want to make sure that, we're not popping up ads in the most disruptive way for consumers. So I think that is going to be something that we're working on now, but it will be what we'll keep working on in the future.
I love that you mentioned influencers. That's fascinating. How are you sort of thinking about influencers?
Yeah, so we've been, and again, I think I really feel that influencers a way that you can introduce brands, and that's how brand discovery is going to happen, especially with younger consumers. So we've been looking at them at a brand level and looking at macro influencers and then micro influencers, and what are the different roles. And I think it's also, what are the different stories that they can tell in their own voice that will help reinforce what we're wanting to talk about at a brand level.
Thinking about it at the brand level and building long-term relationships.
Yes, very much so.
That both the influencer and the brand are mutually committed to.
Exactly. That's and that's exactly where we're going for us at Nissan.
Fantastic. Well, I think David, please do come back. I could talk to Allison forever if you could come.
We can listen to you guys talk forever. I'm not kidding. But that's why we have you guys come back every couple of months to keep the conversation going with our community. So we have no shortage of opportunities in all different formats and form factors. But for now, we really appreciate you sharing with our community and just taking the time out of your day to be with us. And this was a fantastic discussion. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. Really appreciate it.
Of course. This was great. All right, we will wrap up today with one more amazing discussion. We have Mark Wakefield joining us, who's the Senior Vice President of Marketing and oversees Nutella, chocolate snacks, and the like at Ferrero USA. So, I hope you guys have a snack with you for this conversation. We have Tim Piper, a writer, director, and founding partner at Pyro. And we have our moderator, Stu Gurgens, the VP of Client Consulting for NC Solutions, who's going to be leading this discussion. I see Mark has joined, and I think Stu and Tim will be popping in just a second. How you doing there, Mark? Oh, we're not getting I can see you, but I'm not getting your audio. All right, we'll figure that out. In the meantime, we have just a big thank you to everyone who's tuned in here on WebEx, and of course, everybody who's watching on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Twitter and all the various social channels that we simulcast to. An amazing community, so thank you guys for tuning in. I think we're still waiting on Stu and Tim. I'm not getting your audio, Mark, so we'll have Isabel will text you. Maybe the headset, I'm not sure. Let's give everyone a second to tune in. But that was a fantastic conversation. I'll give everybody a little bit of a preview. If you haven't checked out in the last couple months, we have been hard at work on our editorial side, developing a wealth of content. We have our weekly CMO of the Week interview. So this week we featured Barbara Goose, the CMO of John Hancock. Before that, we've had, again, the CMOs of General Mills, of American Express, of Molson Coors, and Laura Balash from Intuit. Just a fantastic group. So, definitely check those out. We've been doing these cultural marketing and QSR innovator interviews as well with people like the CMO of Jamba Juice and the VP of Marketing at Chipotle, executives from Tracksmith or MasterCard talking about sports and esports. Just a fantastic series. So definitely check that out on our site. I see we've got Tim here. Tim, I think you're muted. Mark, did we? Yes, Mark, I can hear you. That's perfect. Tim, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Testing the microphone.
Awesome. I think we are waiting on Stu just to come in. But Tim, it's been, I don't know if we've met. I know Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
What have you guys been up to? How have things changed for you guys while we wait for Stu? Since the pandemic, occurred, how's your business been affected? How have you evolved and adapted?
Well, you're asking me then, David?
Yes. Because I don't want to steal from Mark's going to weigh in as soon as Stu joins in. We'll get to Mark for in a second.
Sure. Well, it's very funny. This is very typical of COVID for me. I was on a call with an editor. Going through the edit when I get a text that says, "Are you joining this call from Brand Innovators?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And so I asked my wife to leave the room, and I just had a look at the clock. And really for us, it's been like that. All my staff are like, we've never worked harder in our lives. Marketing glad to hear it's me working on his job. So yeah, it's been very busy for us. We got pretty fortunate. I mean, we did lose client, lost production, so it was a tough hit at one point. But we also won some business. We just finished a really big production that would have been, ambitious in normal times, and we recently pulled it off. But yeah, we can get into the hurdles we faced for the benefit of educating your audience. But I see Stu's joined.
Yeah, thankfully you pulled it off, Tim. Appreciate
that.
So Stu, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to. Oh, Stu, we're not getting your audio. Also, maybe without the earpods. But I will say, Tim, definitely. I think I've seen. We heard that from a couple other speakers just earlier today already. Just in terms of that, everybody's working harder than ever. Even if you were already working hard, even if you were wearing 2 hats, now you're wearing 3 or 4. Everybody's got to do what you got to do to kind of keep businesses thriving and keep the machine working. I will say, similar to you, I live and breathe by my calendar. But when I MC our virtual events, I turn off all of my notifications, and then I forget to turn them back on, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up. So I think we're all kind of still juggling with that. Stu, can we? I'm not getting your audio, Stu. It might be the AirPods. Technical difficulties is the name of the game. We did our own show. I was doing for a weekly, and we called it technical difficulties because it felt like it was sort of this topic that everybody would resonate with.
Now.
There we go. Perfect. Stu, we've got you. Fantastic. So, Mark, I didn't mean to take the spotlight, but I wanted to reserve the questions for Stu, because I know you guys had that prep, and he's got a bunch of great stuff coming up for you. So, Stu, I will turn the stage over to you to kick off the rest of the conversation.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that, David. Sorry about that, Mark and Tim. Tim, as you alluded to, typical of our COVID world right now.
Yeah, exactly. Glad I wasn't the only one. I was a little late as well.
Well, thanks so much. And I don't know if I think you had some formal intros. Tim Piper from Pyro, founder, and then Mark Wakefield, SVP of chocolate snacks and Nutella at Ferrero. And again, audience, thanks everyone for joining today. Since we're late, let's just hop right in, guys. We have so many topical conversations, obviously, with what's going on in the world these days. But, as I talked to Tim and Mark as we prepped for today's conference, I learned very quickly that no conversation between these two can really get started until we learn about their collaboration and the really great work they've done together on Dove brand as with Mark's previous employer, Unilever. So love to start there. If you guys can give everyone just kind of quick run through of how you guys met, how the collaboration began, and then talk a little bit about the award-winning work you two have done together.
Yeah, so I think, Stu, I met Tim about 15 years ago when I was at Unilever and he was at Ogilvy, and we were working on a project. I was part of the Dove global brand team, and I was asking to lead the launch of the Dove Self-Esteem Fund. And Tim was creative director there, and he developed a couple of great viral films, and we were producing those or getting ready. And he said one day, "I've got another great idea for you." It was based on an insight. He was talking about how his girlfriend gets ready in the morning for an audition or for her work, and how she did the makeup and how she looked so fantastic. But it was like such a transformation. He said, I couldn't even tell it was her anymore. And I have to put that on film. And so he said, I'm going to do a lot of things to show. And we wanted to do something viral to promote the Dove Self-Esteem Fund. And I'm going to go into the area that is all the color retouching and everything. I'm going to dramatize that before and after effect. And we went in. I remember sitting there in some beanbag chairs and Tim saying, yeah, I want to do this on top. And I said, how much do you need? I think it was 100 or 150,000, he said. And I said, okay, I'll find the money. So he went out and did it. And I think that, one of the most famous pieces of work ever in all of marketing advertising history, Dove Evolution, was created in a new opportunity that came on the back of existing work, but also finding, I would say, just being open-minded, going for it. And I didn't know that Tim would keep coming at me with ideas, but every couple of months we were doing something new, and he created this idea called Dove Films, and we went from there. But you know, what Tim put in there was a huge ton of sweat equity. So you know, the money is one thing, but the sweat equity and all the touches. He actually spent, I think, about a week sleeping at the studio getting everything right. So I hope I'm not telling too many stories out of school, and that's not why you broke up with your.
It's nice to hear someone else tell the story so accurately. But yeah, it was definitely a concept that came from looking at the fact that YouTube had just started. It was really the first time we were becoming aware as advertisers and marketers. I think we were becoming aware that we could create filmed content, and it did not have to go through a media channel or anything like that. So that was very exciting. So we thought, well, now we can make films. Let's make a bunch of short films. BMW did it, but they did it before YouTube. Now we had YouTube, and it wasn't stepping so much. So it was kind of working around 2005. And yeah, these guys were good enough to go, all right, let's do that. They had a strategy and a brief, and we pitched these films, and then it was kind of like, yeah, that's a little bit off strategy. So we created other films as well that were more on strategy. But, you know, Mark and co recognized that Dove Evolution was that one guaranteed before and after viral impact that even if it was slightly off the strategy, it was probably worth doing because it had the ability to capture people's minds. And because there was no media dollars, the idea from the get-go was this thing has to be a viral film. We know that before and after images of people being retouched get shared a lot. So the idea of doing that in time lapse, but before hair and makeup, to me was really interesting. And I always thought it was a viral piece. But as we were making it and putting it in the edit suite, it ended up taking about a month. But to put all the images of the retoucher together, because he would send them to me as JPEGs. But it took a long time before, talking about the sweat equity, before it got to a place where it was going to go viral. Because the first edits, it was kind of like, yeah, it's a nice piece of film, but it's not good. It doesn't make me go, holy crap, did you see that? And so, you know, Mark and the team, to their credit, and the agency as well, and my bosses were kind of like, all right, let them have at it, go for it, see what you can do. There's nothing to lose except a few hours. But,
yeah.
I
gotta think of it, Tim, like a musician. You put a composition together and release it, and then everyone has their own interpretation of it. And you guys really hit on kind of that idea of you know, perceptions around beauty and perceptions around advertising and things like that. Was that the ultimate goal, or did it kind of just morph that way as you kind of took that idea of your girlfriend getting ready and kind of explored that space?
Now, the goal was always, I think, to draw attention to the Dove Self-Esteem Fund. You know, you had a brand and a marketing team that were doing something very bold and brave and different. And as a creative guy, just selfishly, you want to attach yourself to marketers who are doing that because they're going to give you an opportunity to excel in your career. And that's what happened.
Yeah, there was actually talk about holding the film, putting it on the Super Bowl. And the discussion was actually what we need to do is we need to get the fund started. We need to bring attention to the way people feel around beauty and body-related imagery. And the right thing to do, because it was so powerful, was to put it out there and let people own it, let people take it. I remember my wife getting it shared back to her, saying, "This is so cool," by a friend of hers the day after it landed. It also broke down the system, and you know, the servers went overloaded because there was so much viral sharing.
Wow, awesome! Yeah, really powerful and impact work. Not a surprise that, you know, the awards and accolades you guys, you know, received from it, and you know, it really ties into, you know, a lot of it. I think what's going on in the world today, right? And the challenges, you know, we have as a culture and a, you know, in a community. So like, let's kind of use this and slip gears to leadership, which was the kind of the topic and theme for the live chat series today. Again, it's obviously interesting times. You know, us as an industry, the world in general. You know, we're navigating social change. We're navigating COVID-19, which I think was probably a big topic for a lot of the sessions earlier today. You know, these things overnight are changing how, you know, consumers shop, how we consume media, Everything's been flipped over on its head. Mark, kind of sticking with kind of the topic and theme around social change, in your opinion, and maybe some things you saw with work you guys did with Dove and others, like, what do you feel like gives brands the right to be a part of these conversations right now? And I think more importantly too, like from your leadership position, within an org, or within a marketing organization, how do you manage that risk for the organization as well? Walk us through.
Yeah, so I think in terms of leadership, I think what gives brands the right, but actually gives them the responsibility to lead social change is to get more communicators. And if we're going to put a message out there and put it on the airwaves, we have an accountability and responsibility to be partly reflecting the society we're living in, but also I think brands have a need and a role to play a lead in shaping culture and working to compete in popular culture by having messages that provide inspiration. So, a lot of brands give you a sense of what a brighter tomorrow could be, what's possible. So there's an inspirational side and an aspirational side to brands that is absolutely in their responsibility to lead and to have. You don't want to hold up a mirror to people and say, here's what's happening today only, because people don't want to see the mirror so much. They want to hold up a window to a brighter future. And so I think brands and social change, in particular in this situation we're in right now, have the chance to bring people some optimism, to bring people some levity. And talking about my current role and the products I'm working on, which are all about bringing joy and delight every day. So we want to put a smile on people's face, make the world a sweeter place, and bring joy and delight through chocolate and that. So I think, that's part of what we can do to bring some people some levity and some emotional uplift. They're feeling nervous, there's things happening in their lives. And it's not just about the products that we offer. We've gone deep on the products to make them better, to clean up the label, to take out preservatives. But from a brand marketing standpoint, the other thing is we need to give people optimism. We need to make their lives full of a bit of joy and that emotional uplift. And, Tim and I worked on some stuff recently. We won't get into it totally, but we actually had some scripts and some ideas on the table. We said, actually, that's holding up a mirror, and people don't want to see more of this stuff. They want us to give them that laugh, that joy. They want us to bring levity. So I don't know if you want to build on that, Tim, but that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I think brands have the responsibility to lead change, compete in culture, help shape it, be inspirational and be aspirational.
Yeah, I think creatively, I know that's more of a branded question, but I do think there's something to be said or lessons to be learned during this pandemic where a lot of brands did try and show some empathy. It's like, yes, we understand what you're going through. We're going through that too. Let's be friends. And sometimes it was disingenuous and you could see it very clearly. But the very early ones might have worked. But I think that, brands just need to stick to what they do as a product sometimes. And if you eat a bar of chocolate, then that's going to make you feel good. So stick to that. A bar of chocolate can't do much more than that. It's not going to do all these other things, and it's not going to be your best friend and hold your hand through the tough times. So I like it when brands sort of stay true to their products and their marketing and product work as one. Because the other thing brands should always do, I think, is the product is there to serve people in life. That's why that product exists. That's why it's successful. That's why you have money to spend on advertising. But why not treat your advertising the same way? Now you've been given a responsibility to talk. You have a voice that's been given to you by consumer support. Use that voice for good, as opposed to selling something and forcing opinions down people's throats or just being annoying or interruptive. Use that voice in the same way, or let people embrace your marketing the same way they embrace your product. Make them want it.
Yeah, and I think
adding to that, selling and telling is kind of history, or should be. People want to have a sense of, entertainment, a return on time invested. The time is the most precious resource. We can't get it back once it's spent. And if we're going to be providing some communication and getting into people's lives, we have to get a return on that. We have to entertain them, not just force them messages.
Yeah, and I know we talked a lot in initial conversations about you know, the importance of values and the values of your brands and the values of you know, the corporation behind them, and just how important those were, and just, you know, ensuring that you know, when you do step out and you take a bit of a risk to you know, help change someone's life or change someone's perspective, you have those strong values, you know, behind your brand and the corporation as well, to you know, manage potential you know, rough waters that come your way.
Yeah. Sorry, Stu, you finished?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that, you know, brands are based on a purpose and mostly a corporation behind them or a company behind them, and those companies have values. And, you know, Unilever has strong, deep values. I loved working there. It was one of the greatest times of my marketing career, obviously. But the idea that, you know, values and principles are what you should always go back to. The company I'm at, Ferrero, has very deep values coming from the founder on quality and integrity. And as I mentioned, you know, the first thing we did when we bought the brands of Butterfinger, Crunch, 100 Grand, Baby Ruth, Raisinets, we went back to the quality and we cleaned up the label. We made the product more artisanal. We went to, instead of, you know, fat frying the peanuts, we dry roasted them. We went to the best quality, and by having that principle to guide us, you know, of course, food quality is and taste is everything, especially in chocolate. And so I think that then we have a leg to stand on and say, okay, how do we bring that into our marketing? Then we can bring people in and know that they'll stay, because the first taste will be the satisfying experience. But I think the leaderships and values that we have will see us through it. And, you know, that comes to when we take a risk in terms of our marketing, because we know that we are going in the right direction. It's true based on our roots, and people will appreciate that, and we're authentic.
And then Tim, as we, you know, we kind of dove into social change, the role of brands, the you know, impact it has on the creative side. You know, something we talked about that really struck me was you kind of linked social change to like newfound artistic inspiration, and something for us, you know, is a culture to tap into and you know, help make meaningful change. Kind of unpackage that a little bit for us, and kind of how do you feel that you know, the challenges we have in 2020 we're going to see as far as kind of new inspirational things within the creative world?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know what I said before. It sounded good, but I don't know how to. I think that, I mean, for us, yeah, I think whenever you're challenged like this, and all of the creative departments being challenged to work differently, when it comes to production, you know, the lessons you learn along the way when things are completely different makes you have to create differently for shoots and sets and things like that. I think, yeah, like, you know, they say when there's a war and all that new technology comes in, and there are all these positive side effects from tough times. I can definitely see that happening in the creative department. I can see it in how we collaborate with each other. I can see it on how also how creatives just really need to be on the same team as not only clients, but their, you know, account service people, just so that there is something to be said for the Zoom calls and everything we're having. It's basically put me in the same room every single time we're all together with the client, with my partner, with my business partner, Daniel, with my, you know, employee, producer. So we're all sort of in this together. And I think, you know, if we're lucky, a lot of relationships that clients and agencies have can get a little deeper. And you see the benefit of, you know, what happens when brands and marketers and their agencies bond. I mean, that's where you get, you know, the Wieden, Kennedy, Nike relationships and output, and even Ogilvy and IBM to some extent. And there are some other, you know, classics with Goodby and Co. But so I think there's something interesting about, you know, no one really having their offices and their teams and everyone having a bit more empathy for each other. It's like, yeah, my world stuff, your world stuff too. But isn't it great what we're able to create together? So hopefully there's a bit more of that going on that we can take into the, you know, second part of 2021 or whenever we go back to normal.
Yeah, it's funny. I see that in, like, of all spaces, the analytics space, because it's like you're so used to that office setting, and it's so structured, and you're there to meet, and you solve that problem and you leave. Where, like, now there's like a kind of an interesting sense of like vulnerability as you all get to look into each other's homes and get to know each other.
Yeah, right.
And, yeah, I know all my clients' kids now, which I just find so funny because they'll pop on the screen. So yeah, you know, and you know, when we think about just you know, attitudes making things a better place, like, you know, hopefully that rubs off in the work you guys do, and we see that for things where we're just trying to make people smile. So really interesting. So Tim, sticking with you, just to dovetail to talking a little bit more about how the pandemic's changed, like things with like creative production. Can you kind of walk us through kind of changes you're seeing you need to make in the creative process when we all can't be together on set and things like that?
Yeah, there are a lot of, I mean, some things worked really well. And then the last thing we shot, Mark watched the whole thing on a monitor from his home. And I think that worked well. So did some of the creatives. So they weren't, you know, no one was there to bother me. I was directing this shoot. But we also had the client, you know, the people that work under Mark there. Having them at a distance, I usually like to keep clients close to me so that they know the process of directing and production. So there's no, you know, head scratching at the monitor, you know, 20 feet away, and no barriers to get to the person making set decisions. But all that had to be further away. It made everything a lot slower. So I think that for the brands that are listening, that are going into production or agencies, you really do have to watch out for what you're trying to achieve. Everything, from what I could tell, was twice as slow. And areas that we thought we would save money, such as if the whole community shut down, people would be dying to work. We might be able to get some bargains with location and things like that. And I was kind of looking forward to getting back to work. But everything sort of worked in the opposite. No one wanted to work. A lot of crew were getting unemployment and didn't want to risk getting COVID for a little bit more money. So it was hard to get good people. The locations didn't want to, not many locations were open for business. So the ones that were kind of taking advantage, I think. And, you know, it wasn't until, you know, our producer wrapped that we saw that, you know, the absolute carnage that had happened to our budget. We were in a bit of a tough situation where we loved the work so much, we knew it would be good for the agency. So I had to have, you know, tough conversations with my business partner and the client at first with overages. But then when the real money, you know, started to land, there are overages on the overages. And what do you do then? Do you actually go, let's just cut the last day in half? Let's just cut our losses here and not move forward with everything we hoped? Or, you know, it was impossible to go back to the client, you know, to have another conversation about money when there'd already been 10. So, you know, there are these really horrible things that are a result of just never having been in this position before. And the lesson or the takeaway is just be prepared to do a lot less. But we were probably too ambitious, to be honest. You know, as an agency, we probably promised too much. I think as a brand, they probably asked for too much. And I think in the end, it became too much. But, you know, in 6 months' time,
and keep asking for more. We'll have the negotiation on the numbers.
Yeah, we should.
But I think, you know, Stu, just to build on the incredible level of detail and work and fit and finish, people were getting into making sure everyone was safe, making sure everything was contained.
Yeah, the safeties.
Like the professionalism of the team was just outstanding, and it had to be, because you're dealing with a very important in people's lives. But I think that's the point, is that if this continues, you're going to see in the production world that probably opposite of what Tim's expected, it's going to go up, because you have to, you know, we see it at the grocery store, we see it at other places, everything's a lineup. So I think we're gonna see that it'll be productions will have to be managed a little bit differently with a mindset, and we'll have to find more fluid and dynamic ways to do it. But I think, I won't keep asking for the world's best.
I won't keep promising it. Yeah, so it was. Productions just got tougher. Really for everyone too. Everyone on the set, it's tough. Even my cinematographer, the DP, he said, this would have been such a fun shoot, were it not for COVID, because there are a lot of jokes. There was a lot of laughter. Half the time the actors were cracking up and they just couldn't be straight because they were enjoying themselves so much. But at the end of the day, everyone just walked away from that shoot just going, "Oh man, that was tough."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in Mark, kind of pivoting more to the pandemic challenges with just overall messaging and then media. I got a chuckle the other day because I saw an ad that had a disclaimer in the bottom right corner that the scenes were filmed pre-COVID, which I found quite interesting. Like how, yeah, Mark, how are you guys thinking about when you go into messaging or designs of your creative? Did you see the pandemic and kind of how it changes us situationally, changing how you guys think about how you want to present certain kind of things with your brands or value props? Walk us through kind of your head there and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think that I mentioned earlier that Tim and I were talking about a certain scenario which was very much apropos for the pandemic, and we sort of said, actually, that's not what people want to see anymore, and we want to give people that window to a brighter future and look at something that is on strategy, delivering the big idea, but is not situational or momentary, but it's more thinking about the long term. What's the right thing for the idea? What's the right thing for the communication? So that we're not reflecting just a transaction of today or a situational moment. So we took that off the table, and we said, how do we think big and give people the entertainment they want? It's Hollywood, or it's advertising, it's communication. So we've got to bring that to life. And I think it's really important that whenever you're looking at your brand strategy or communication development, is that you focus on where you want to be and laddering it up to the long term, not trying to just sort of ape or do something that's very situational. Of course, you have to be also topical and entertaining. And Tim and I are talking about options to be really topical on the moment. Of course, in chocolate, we have seasons. So we're looking at how we bring to life and really make fun of the seasons. Seasons are a lot of fun. There's a lot of entertainment value we can do with some of the ideas that connect to seasons, but those are long-term lasting things that people love to see. Can we do something at Christmas with chocolate? We do something at Easter, and we have some fun with that. So we will be doing that in situational topical, but again, I think we have to think about how we can think big picture long term, but also not necessarily reflecting the worries of today, but the hope and opportunity tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. We got 15 minutes left. Let's move. We've got a lot of questions coming in via the QA. Tim and Mark, if you're ready to tackle them. Let's see. Let's start with just overall kind of predictions in general. Mark, maybe for you, kind of specific to CPG category, kind of what do you let's put ourselves at this time kind of next year. What do you feel like you're seeing? Maybe, generally, and then, just other kind of things that have changed maybe in retail and point of sale outlets and things like that.
Well, I think that obviously the retail environment is tough, and there's a lot of retailers who are doing great, other ones who are not, and we're looking to try to intersect that and make our brands and our products meaningful to the retailer and the consumer with great shopper marketing, as well as great consumer-facing marketing. I think that as we look at the transition period, we're going to have even more and more people technologically empowered around media. My biggest worry is getting behind the subscription firewall, getting into, how do we reach people who are cord cutting? So that's where I think, it's going to be ever more demanding on communication. Disney Plus, these kinds of mediums, people are not watching ads anymore. So the consumer's very smart and knows how to avoid our messaging. We have to be smarter and better. And I think the bar is continuously raising on that as we go into to the new reality. So those are some of the things that are on my mind for where CPG is going. I think volume is going to continue to be tough. We're going to look at trying to drive new occasions, as I mentioned, with the seasons. But in general, I think the big thing is reach. Reach is the oxygen of brands, and the reach area is tough because the consumer is really highly empowered, and we're working technologically, but they've got a lot of options available to them. So we have to earn their time.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, we say that a lot from from my side and the from the media analytics perspective and how we consult with clients is we have a lot of clients really excited about new trial buyers and people that have been brought into their brands due to the pandemic or due to nuances in what's available at point of sale, where a lot of it is like, where do we find these folks in kind of new evolving channels? As people get used to life at home and they're on different medias, how do we work and develop and ensure that the media plans we built are aligned with how they're consuming media? So yeah, for all of us, it will be ever changing, evolving rest of this year and into 2021. Tim, a question for you. Curious, are there any new, when we think about like technologies or innovations or things, you guys potentially are looking to utilize or try kind of on the creative and production side? Are there things you guys are looking into as you kind of learn from your first couple COVID kind of productions and kind of move into the rest of this year and into next?
I think the ability to tap into, best in class talent from anywhere around the world. There's less benefit now to, doing a job posting. We've employed 2 people. I haven't met them yet, in person. And, it made us think when we were having to employ that we didn't really want to. I thought, well, let's get a freelancer. It doesn't matter if they're in New York or LA or wherever. But there was an ability now, or a bit more license to just go to the best in the world and use them. And bring them into your business and make the business structure. Because a lot of people are getting laid off as well. You create a new business structure for people. Like give them X amount per month, but only use them for a certain few days. But make sure. So for me, for an agency like Pyro, we're excited by the prospect of literally handpicking who are the best people in the world doing the best work. All you need them is for to be their best for a few hours at a certain period of time. You don't need to put someone on a really big salary for the entire year, right? What you need are little pieces of inspired genius which pop up every now and again. And so there's a way to create a creative business structure where you're able to bring in the best, whether they're working for other agencies or whatever, but with a really flexible, working relationship. So that part's exciting. I think as far as content, and I think we're going to see a lot more, click to purchase than people going out to retail, because the infrastructure is going to get better. And I think that content and consuming advertising is going to be a little, I think the social advertising will get a lot smarter. I think brands will learn how to be more entertaining so that their clickbait or their ads are more clickbait than interruptive and getting in people's way. I think, the smartest advertisers are going to do what the smartest advertisers have always done. And they're going to, treat the audience like someone who will come on board once you give them some really quality, great, inspiring, creative work that goes and matches and aligns with their product. So, and when it comes to streaming and network television, I mean, ads still have the news and they still have sport, but everything else is kind of, is going away pretty rapidly. So, for your movie to be interrupted by, 5 minutes of watching a movie and then 2 minutes of advertising, I know I personally can't tolerate that anymore and haven't for years. So I imagine that's filtering out to the rest of the population. So I think you're going to see a return to free subscriptions with like 1 or 2 ads per movie. And I think that'll be fine for the industry. So there's going to be little nuanced changes like that, but nothing too dramatic, I don't think.
Yeah, well, kind of building on that, are you guys scrambling to find audiences as we lose kind of like our key tentpole events we're used to kind of building plans around, or has that changed kind of your guys' strategy?
I think that we have definitely tentpole events, which are also related around the calendar and people's daily lives. But we're looking at universal appeal. We're mass marketing, at least on my brands. We're looking for, trying to get mass reach. So micro targeting is part of it, but that's really in the social digital space. We're really trying to be highly mass oriented.
Yeah, interesting. So let's end it kind of with a kind of getting back to the focus on leadership. And Mark, maybe we'll start with you. As a leader in your org, how have you changed kind of your management of your staff? Do you have kind of some tips or tricks you can kind of share with everybody as we kind of move and kind of hunker down with working from home, kind of being our norm, at least for, maybe another year here or more?
Yeah, I think that, it's stages and phases. I think the original phase is a little bit of bewilderment. Working from home means working all the time. And then you have to set up some ability to set some parameters and some ways of working that are a little, turning some things off, even if I was working quite late myself last night. But the idea is to be empathetic, like, you do see, I have a number of women on my team and their kids come in, a number of men who are also taking care of their children, and they're juggling, two working parents sometimes with their families, and they're juggling. So it's like, oh, that's the sweetest sound I've ever heard. Your kid coming into the screen here, and that's what it's all about. You actually get to meet them, so that's fun. But I think it's going to be about empathy with the people, high touch, and recognition that we have to find a way to be organic and fluid. I think Tim was talking about, you can bring a lot of people into the room, and that's what I find right now. It can be highly collaborative, actually very fluid and dynamic. I think we just have to find a way to make sure it's also human and not technology overdriving people's energy levels. And that's what I'm really focused on is every time I say, hi, how you doing? I can have 4 or 5 people on the screen, and I'm trying to say, check in with them, make sure they're okay, tell them how much I appreciate them. Their hard work is valued. That's the kind of touch you would have in a personal situation. You need to bring that into this environment.
Yeah. Awesome. And then anything you guys can share kind of with big plans, Mark, for your brands this coming year and work you guys are doing? Any kind of sneak peeks?
No, not real sneak peeks. I would say we're working on 2 blockbuster ideas that, I was delighted when Tim texted me after the shoot that he was on for one of our brands. And again, a very highly ambitious film making, and probably shot 5 days and 3 days, but then had all the difficulties of COVID. So that was a monumental feat, but he said next best thing to Dove. And some of the work that he finds that his agency's done, some of the best. And I'd say, that's a real big compliment to, and I guess a feeling that I have that's going to be great. I haven't seen more than a couple rough cuts, but when his agency's done that work with Kendall Jenner and
Estee Lauder
entertainment type stuff, that for him to say that is great. So we've got one that's in Japan that we're just polishing. That I won't tell tales out of school too much, but it's going to break in a couple weeks. I'm working on another blockbuster, just finalizing that. So we're on the path, and there's some great stuff happening.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I don't see any other questions in here. If anyone else has a question, feel free to throw it in the Q&A section. Who's watching?
I think we're
roll through them all, David?
Yeah, I think we got through them all. This was fantastic. We're just about at our time. So, Mark, we're excited to see those big ideas come to fruition. Guys, this was phenomenal. Stu, Tim, Mark, thank you so much for wrapping up today and participating and sharing with our community. So thank you so much.
Thanks. That was good.
David.
We are going to have you all back again soon. Thank you to everybody who tuned in here on WebEx and who attended on YouTube and on LinkedIn as well. We've got some amazing content coming up. Tomorrow's our big influencer marketing summit. We've got a Future of Media day next week with some amazing speakers talking about TV and OTT and gaming. So be sure to keep an eye out, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And with that, have a great rest of your day, everyone.